Chapter 12:26. A big snake was lying in the room, and the smell was very strong. Ning Shu looked at it. "Hurry up, you scared my baby." The big snake's tail swept, and Ning Shu's table was overturned. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." The big black snake quickly apologized. "You'd better hurry up and leave." Ning Shu said, "If you stay here for a long time, the people of Baiyun Taoist Temple will come and take your snake pearl for alchemy. I don't know where to go, they destroyed my nest. What does it have to do with me?" Ning Shu was quite indifferent. "Big snake, two-legged monster." The big snake Ning Shu shouted. "Ning Shu, who are you calling? I'm going to lay an egg." "Ning Shu, are you a female? After laying an egg, I will become very weak, and I have no way to deal with those two-legged monsters." Speaking of which, snakes were also very miserable. Molting and giving birth would weaken their strength. Only by really evolving into a flood dragon could they get rid of this shackle. "Do you want to steam the snake eggs for me to eat?" Ning Shu held Jinjin and didn't dare to put her down. He was afraid that if he didn't pay attention, he would be swallowed by the big snake. Ning Shu pointed to the big snake. "It's best not to swallow people. At that time, don't talk about being a flood dragon, even being a snake is impossible. Human beings were a race with great luck. If the big snake swallowed people, she would suffer." The big snake made an "oh" sound, and its thick tail swept. It seemed to be very embarrassed. "Can you take me in and let me give birth to a baby?" "No, I refuse." Was she going to be a midwife again? She had crossed races, and now she had to deliver a baby for a snake. She was afraid that the last delivery would happen again, and a nest of snake eggs would be given to her. "It's going to be dawn, let's go quickly." Ning Shu yawned. "Two-legged monster, I can't run far. I'm going to give birth, can you give me a place? I'll leave after giving birth." Ning Shu rolled his eyes. "I know this trick. After giving birth, you have to hatch the eggs, hatch a small snake, and take a lot of children with you. There's no way to leave." The snake was speechless. The serpent had no choice. It was not easy to meet someone who was not afraid of her. If he appeared elsewhere, it would definitely cause a commotion. Her cultivation and the child in her womb were about to be destroyed. Ning Shu was more concerned about something else. "You already have a baby. You should have a husband, right? Your husband should be like you, right?" "What is a husband?" Orochi asked curiously. "Ning Shu, then how did you get pregnant?" Ning Shu asked. "When it reaches the estrus period, it will mate with the male snake, and then it will lay eggs," the big snake said. In order not to show that he was ignorant, Ning Shu was very calm. "There's a cellar. You can hide in the cellar." "Thank you. I will repay you in the future." "Forget it. Just don't stare at my baby every day." The serpent complimented, "Your child is very cute. She looked very delicious." The serpent crawled on the ground, out of the room, and into the cellar. Ning Shu put down Jinjin in his arms and gently patted her chest. Then he opened the windows to disperse the smell in the room. After dawn, Ning Shu caught a chicken and went to the cellar to take a look. As soon as he opened it, there was a strong smell. Ning Shu waved his hand and stepped on the ladder to go down. "Here you go." Ning Shu put the chicken on the ground. The big snake swallowed the chicken in one bite. "I think I'm going to give birth. My belly hurts a little." Ning Shu stretched out his hand and touched her belly. There was a bulging place. Ning Shu had no experience in delivering a snake, so he could only say, "It should be." "Dr. Lu, Dr. Lu." The ant next door shouted. Ning Shu came out of the cellar holding a cabbage and asked, "What's wrong, ant?" The Taoist priest came again. The village chief asked people to gather at the village entrance, the ant said. Ning Shu put down the cabbage and followed the villagers to the village entrance with Jinjin on his back. The old Taoist priest was still immortal and asked the village chief, "Did no one see the snake?" "The village is very calm, I guess the big snake has already left," the village chief said with some uncertainty. The old Taoist priest wrinkled his white eyebrows. "It shouldn't be, this big snake has been forced to come to this village by them. Why didn't it appear?" The old Taoist priest saw Ning Shu coming towards him from the corner of his eye. His eyelids jumped and he couldn't help but straighten his chest. "What's the smell on your body?" As soon as Ning Shu came closer, the old Taoist priest smelled a fishy smell. Ning Shu raised his hand and smelled it. "You said this smell. Last night, a snake wanted to eat my cow, but I beat it away." The old Taoist priest, "Ah." The surrounding villagers stared at Ning Shu in amazement. "You beat the snake away?" The ant next door asked in surprise. "Then last night, why didn't I hear any movement? I know Kung Fu." The old Taoist priest Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "This, the Taoist priest should know." The old Taoist priest almost rolled his eyes. "Where did the snake go?" the old Taoist priest asked. Ning Shu shook his head. "I don't know, maybe it ran to your Taoist temple." The ant next door, Ning Shu, asked, "Dr. Lu, you know Kung Fu, how could your husband be killed by bandits?" The old Taoist priest looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu calmly said, "When I found my husband, he was already rotten." The old Taoist priest took people back to Baiyun Taoist temple and repeatedly told the villagers that if they encountered a snake, they should quickly inform them. Otherwise, they deserved to be swallowed by the snake. After the old Taoist priest left, Ning Shu and his group also went back. Ning Shu asked them whether they saw the big snake. Ning Shu only said that it was too dark and he didn't see it clearly. Ning Shu walked to the courtyard and heard some movement in the cellar. Ning Shu hurriedly went down the cellar. He saw the big snake tossing and turning on the ground, looking like it was in pain. It looked like it was about to give birth. Ning Shu went out to find some withered grass and placed it in the cellar. "Lower your voice, are you trying to attract people here? I'm in pain." "How painful can it be to lay an egg? Don't snakes have two dicks? When they mate, it hurts too," Ning Shu said. The big snake was in pain for a long time before it finally produced a fist-sized egg. Since it was the first to lay, the rest was much smoother. The big snake laid 3 eggs and its head lay on the ground, looking exhausted. Ning Shu looked at the eggs and really wanted to make stewed eggs. However, the snake eggs probably smelled fishy, so Ning Shu gave up. Ning Shu placed the snake eggs on the withered grass. "When will this egg hatch? If the villagers know that there's a snake in my house, I'll probably be chased out." Dangerous things had to be chased out. The big snake said, "It will take some time." Ning Shu, he knew it was trouble. "When you get better, you can leave with your balls in your mouth. Those people from Baiyun Taoist temple will find you again," Ning Shu said in a bad mood. She went out of the cellar and got a chicken for the snake. He didn't even pluck the feathers. The big snake swallowed the chicken and said, "I can leave after resting for another day." Chapter 12:27. After giving birth, the snake had rested enough. She held the egg in her mouth and dragged her huge body away in the dark. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. She was finally gone. He was always worried about being discovered. He hoped that she could survive the lightning tribulation and evolve into a flood dragon. It was all for the sake of being stronger and better alive. He really couldn't stand such a spiritual object next time. Ning Shu thought that the snake had escaped, but in less than 2 days, she was caught by the people of Baiyun Temple. And her stomach was cut open. The villagers swarmed to Baiyun Temple to see the snake. The snake's corpse was hung on a tree. Its body was extremely thick. The bulging part of its abdomen had been cut open with a knife, revealing its tender snow-white claws. The Taoist priest of Baiyun Temple pointed at the snake's corpse and said that the snake was about to transform into a flood dragon. When the time came, it would spit out clouds and flood. Ning Shu sneered. A flood dragon didn't have such great ability. It was just an excuse for its ambition. When humans compared themselves to something stronger, they would either revere it, such as the gods, or destroy it. Ning Shu sighed and rolled his eyes at the old Taoist priest standing at the entrance of the Three Pure Hall. This old Taoist priest was the most merciless person Ning Shu had ever seen. He had a sage-like demeanor. It was more like the style of cultivators. As long as it was beneficial to them, they would plunder it. There were some eggshells on the ground. The yolk and egg white were shattered. The world was too dangerous. It was either a natural disaster or a war. The snake was also very miserable because someone wanted her snake pearl. Ning Shu saw that one of the eggs only had a small crack on it, and egg clear was flowing out. Ning Shu picked it up. "Dr. Lu, what are you doing?" asked the woman next door, Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled. "I haven't eaten a snake egg yet. I'll take it back and eat it. It's better not to eat it. Look at how scary this snake is. Something might happen if you eat her child." Ning Shu held the egg and injected some spirit energy into it. After leaving Baiyun Taoist Temple, Ning Shu covered the egg with fluffy soil and covered it with some leaves and withered grass. Maybe it would hatch, maybe it wouldn't. Ning Shu took Jinjin home. Now, Lu Jinjin could turn over a new leaf. She often smiled at Ning Shu, revealing her pink gums. When Ning Shu had nothing to do, he would carry her up the mountain to pick herbs. When he picked a herb, he would tell Jinjin the name of the herb. Jinjin didn't know anything, she just giggled. Ning Shu felt that such a life was simple but sufficient. Not everyone wanted to experience such a soul-stirring life like the wind and rain. Now, Jinjin could eat some supplementary food. Ning Shu caught a pheasant, went home, chopped it into minced meat and boiled it in the porridge. Jinjin was very healthy. From time to time, Ning Shu would inject some spiritual energy into her body. She ate well and slept well. It made Jinjin's body very sturdy. Ning Shu carried the basket and walked to the door of his house. He met the village chief who was in a hurry. "Dr. Lu, quickly go and take a look. Someone in my family is injured," the village chief said anxiously. Ning Shu put down the basket and carried Jinjin to the village chief's house. Before entering the house, Ning Shu smelled the smell of blood. "Dr. Lu, quickly go in and take a look," the village chief Ning Shu said. Ning Shu frowned, opened the curtain and went in. There was a woman wearing armor in the room. On the bed, there was a man wearing the same armor. "Are you a doctor?" The woman deliberately lowered her voice and said in a rough voice. Ning Shu couldn't help but pull the corner of his mouth. A woman dressed as a man was fine. Short, small frame, no Adam's apple, delicate skin and tender flesh. People who didn't know that she was a woman were blind. "Then you take a look at the general," the woman said. Ning Shu walked over and sat on the bed to take the man's pulse. "He is very hungry. Prepare something for him to eat," Ning Shu said. "I'll trouble the village chief," the woman quickly said to the village chief. The village chief nodded. Ning Shu took the man's pulse for a while. The woman was worried and asked, "How is the general?" "The symptoms are a bit strange. The wounds on his body will be fine after applying some medicine," Ning Shu said. "I want to ask, why hasn't the general woken up yet?" The woman was so anxious that her face turned red. Aren't you a doctor? How come you don't know?" The woman angrily and anxiously said, tears rolling in her eyes. "Ning Shu, I fainted from hunger." The woman's tears completely fell down. "The general shouldn't have given me all the food." Ning Shu was more curious about how a woman sneaked into the army. Could it be that Hua Mulan joined the army? How could the general, who was originally in the barracks, come here? Could it be that here was close to the border? Lu Xiaoye was just a drop in the ocean in this world. She knew nothing about the outside world. Ning Shu didn't expect that he would encounter such a combination. Why are you here? Ning Shu asked. The woman wiped the tears off her face. The general was ambushed by the enemy. Then the enemy followed you? Ning Shu asked. The woman nodded. Perhaps we will have to leave soon. The general is the god of war who founded the country. He cannot die. How did the god of war end up like this? Ning Shu suddenly realized something. If there were enemies tracking them, their village would be in trouble. He didn't believe that the enemy wouldn't wantonly slaughter the enemy's citizens. They would torture anyone they captured and force them to reveal the whereabouts of the escapees. Ning Shu couldn't help but sigh. It wasn't easy for him to find a place with beautiful scenery. Your general was poisoned. Not only was he poisoned, but he was also inflicted with a goo. Ning Shu said. The woman was dumbfounded. How did this happen? Ning Shu said, you should go to Baiyun Temple. Baiyun Temple just caught a large snake that was about to transform into a flood dragon. If you eat the snake's gallbladder, it might be able to detoxify the poison. Finally, the Baiyun Temple's master has a way. The village chief came in and said, moreover, the Baiyun Temple's master is a very capable person. Some time ago, he caught a large snake. That snake was very big and even grew claws. The woman's eyes flashed with a burning light. Really? Of course, everyone in the village knows. The village chief said. He went out to see if his wife had finished preparing the meal. Ning Shu frowned. If the snake gallbladder could detoxify the poison, the large snake would die. Ning Shu stared at the man with purple lips on the bed. Such a coincidence. It seemed like it was because of the man on the bed. That's great. The woman's eyes flashed with a burning light. Ning Shu asked, where is Baiyun Temple? Later, let the village chief take you there. Ning Shu stood up. Junjun grabbed his hair until it hurt. No matter what, thank you. The woman said. She took out a bead and gave it to Ning Shu. This is your reward. This bead was bigger than a man's thumb. It was pink in color and round in shape. At a glance, it was a very precious thing. Wasn't this too expensive? She had only taken a pulse. Chapter 12:28. This is a pearl, I'll give it to you as a reward. The woman's eyes stared at the pearl and finally moved away. It seemed that this woman also liked the pearl very much, so why did he give it to her? Ning Shu looked down at the pearl in the palm of his hand and returned it to her. No, I didn't do anything, you don't have to give me a reward. You keep it, just. The woman saw Jinjin on Ning Shu's back, just think of it as a gift from me to this child. She gave such a precious thing to a total stranger. The quality of this thing was so good, the tribute was just as so. How many pearl divers dived into the water again and again for a perfect pearl? Just for a good quality pearl. Ning Shu never believed that a pie would fall from the sky. I don't want it, I don't want it. Ning Shu returned the pearl to the woman and left. The woman looked surprised. The village chief gave her a bowl of porridge with some wild vegetables in it. The woman didn't dislike it and took the bowl and gave the pearl to the village chief, saying that it was a reward. The village chief had never seen such a round and big pearl. He wiped his hand on his clothes, thanked her again and again, and put the pearl away. If he could have such a pearl, he would be rich. Ning Shu went out of the village chief's house and said to Jinjin on his back, there is no place in this world that is truly peaceful and peaceful. In such a remote place, there was a country's god of war. The god of war was like that. Was the name of the god of war really not an undeserved reputation? It was a pity about the big snake. Maybe if he didn't let her get lost, maybe she wouldn't have died. At that time, he felt that in any case, she was a big snake that could transform into a flood dragon, so she wouldn't die so easily. As a result, she immediately gave Ning Shu a slap in the face. Ning Shu thought about whether he should change to another place to live. The more Ning Shu thought about it, the more he felt that the big snake provided a snake gallbladder for that man. Ning Shu, back at home, Ning Shu put Jinjin on the bed and touched her face. Let's go travel. Come, wander, anyway, there are a lot of directions. Ning Shu suspected that this man and woman were the protagonists. Share trials and tribulations together, see the true feelings. Come on, love. Anyway, there's a lot of foolishness. The woman planned to carry the general to Baiyun Taoist temple. Village chief had just received such a good pearl and immediately asked the strong men in the village to carry the general to Baiyun Taoist temple. Not long after the woman and the general left, a group of people arrived at the village. These people's faces were engraved with complicated and unknown patterns, making their faces look somewhat ferocious. As soon as he entered the village, he spoke in stiff Mandarin. Where did the two people from before go? They went to Baiyun Taoist temple, the villager said. Don't expect these villagers to risk their lives for someone they don't know. The leader's face twitched, causing the patterns on his face to twist. High priest, capture a villager and bring us to Baiyun Taoist temple, someone said. The high priest in the lead closed his eyes for a moment before opening them and heading towards the village chief's house. Ning Shu hugged the child and looked at the people with colorful faces. Who were these people? Seeing that they were heading towards the village head's house, Ning Shu also followed. Many villagers also followed to watch the fun. When the high priest saw the village chief, he immediately grabbed his neck. The village chief was dumbfounded. The high priest said coldly, "Hand over the shark pearl." The village chief didn't know what a shark pearl was. With his neck being grabbed, his face was extremely red. High priest, he can't speak like this, someone beside him reminded. The high priest opened his hand and the village chief fell to the ground, coughing violently. The person beside the high priest said to the village chief, "The shark pearl is a pearl. Hand it over or you can wait for death." Under the threat of death, the village chief instantly thought of the pearl that the soldier had given him. He crawled out of the house and took out the pearl. "This is it. I only have this pearl," the village chief said while trembling. "High priest." The man called the high priest nodded. The man immediately took the pearl. "I finally found the shark pearl." Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. Shark pearl? Wasn't this pearl given to him by the woman from before? That woman was probably trying to divert trouble. Did the shark pearl belong to a merman? Ning Shu, were there still mermen in this world? Don't lie to me, high priest, we only haven't found the spirit stone. The person who founded the country is too despicable. He stole our things. That person was poisoned by the high priest. The high priest was able to track him down. The high priest is still capable. Before this person finished speaking, the expression of the person called the high priest changed. Of course, one couldn't see the expression on such a gaudy face. Instead, his face was trembling. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of blood. High priest. The people beside her supported her nervously. The high priest said, "The mother Gu can't sense the other party's presence. The child Gu is dead. Where is the White Cloud Temple? Bring us there quickly," the man said to the village chief. The village chief was frightened by these people and quickly nodded. Follow me." These people quickly flew towards the White Cloud Temple. Ning Shu thought about it and followed them because she heard about the spirit stone. Could the spirit stone be a boundary stone? She didn't expect those two people to have such good things with them. These people obviously didn't find anything. When they arrived at the White Cloud Temple, they had already left. High Priest, if we continue walking, we will reach the heart of the country. It's very disadvantageous for us. The High Priest snorted. These thieves stole our clan's treasure. Without the protection of the Spirit Stone, our clansmen suffered great harm. The High Priest was so angry that her face was trembling. They purposely left behind the Shark Pearl and took away the more precious Spirit Stone. They are too cunning. Ning Shu listened to these people and felt that she had missed out on something. What was the Spirit Stone? Was it a boundary stone? Looking at them, they should be very concerned about the Spirit Stone. Was it possible for her to obtain a Spirit Stone? Ning Shu's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. High Priest, should we continue to chase? The High Priest looked at the sky with melancholy. I can't sense their location now. The Gu is already dead. Ning Shu was speechless. That woman wanted to lead the disaster to the west. Ning Shu also wanted to lead the disaster to the White Cloud Temple. She didn't expect that the old man would really solve the problem. What could anyone say about this? If she had known, she would have let the two of them stay here. She reckoned that she wouldn't have been able to keep them here. If they knew that someone was following them, how could they stay in one place for long? She watched helplessly as a treasure slipped away in front of her eyes. It really hurt. She didn't know what was good for her, but 2333 didn't know either. Why wasn't 2333 doing anything? Ning Shu calmed herself down and waited to see what these people would do. If they continued to chase, Ning Shu also planned to follow and take a look. High Priest, it's not too late to chase now. The people beside her advised. That Xianyuan Hao's martial arts are unparalleled. If the poison is cured, we might not be able to defeat him. Someone said. Chapter 12:29. These people with tattoos on their faces couldn't make up their minds. If they continued to chase, they might not be able to catch up. If they found Xianyuan Hao, they might not be able to defeat him. Once they reached a city, Xianyuan Hao would be able to mobilize the local authorities. But if they didn't chase, they would lose the Spirit Stones and their entire race would be exterminated. The High Priest's face was extremely distorted. Chase. The group of people hurriedly ran. Ning Shu immediately followed. These people seemed to be proficient in tracking techniques. They followed the traces of trees and leaves. Ning Shu felt that these people should be living in the mountain forest and had a way to track their prey. Jinjin, don't cry. Ning Shu calmed his dantian and walked as if he was walking on flat ground. It wasn't that bumpy. In the face of genocide, these people moved quickly and quickly found the two people. The war god and the small soldier were eating barbecued meat. Ning Shu hid at the side and watched. After washing himself clean, Xianyuan Hao looked like a handsome tree in the wind with a powerful aura. The more he looked, the more Ning Shu looked like the main character. The High Priest coldly looked at Xianyuan Hao. Give me the Spirit Stones. Xianyuan Hao stood up. Good things belong to those who are capable. Your Shi clan only has a few hundred people. With the Spirit Stones in my hands, I can protect so many people in the Li country. Your Li country is human, but my people aren't. Your Li country can live without Spirit Stones, but my people will die without Spirit Stones. The High Priest's face was distorted. Ning Shu couldn't help but scratch his head. These Spirit Stones were so important. Your Shi clan can't bask in the sun. You can live underground and come out at night. The armored woman said. Ning Shu blinked. What kind of illness was it that couldn't bask in the sun? He reckoned that this group of people lacked the genes to resist ultraviolet rays. Hearing this, Ning Shu could basically confirm that the Spirit Stones were boundary stones. These people must be living under the enchantment. Are you willing to live underground? One of the people beside the High Priest said fiercely. The armored woman put her hands on her waist and charmingly said, it's not like I can't bask in the sun. Ning Shu was convinced by this logic. The high priestess stared at Xianyuan Hao. Return the spirit stones to me, and I won't care about anything else. But if you really want to do this, then we can only fight to the death. Xianyuan Hao didn't care about the high priest's words. He stretched out his bony hand and straightened his sleeve. Things like spirit stones shouldn't be something that you people can have. The patterns on the high priest's face wriggled. So you're not returning it to us? I only took your things and didn't hurt your people. If it was someone from the imperial court, they would have definitely sent troops to surround and annihilate your village. Xianyuan Hao said. I only took your things and didn't hurt you. Instead, it was you who poisoned me. Don't feel wronged. A man's wealth is his own ruin. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu nodded. It seemed that Xianyuan Hao was quite benevolent. What the hell? After snatching something, he had to convince you wholeheartedly. Ning Shu squatted at the side and swatted the mosquito on his foot. Since the two sides didn't agree, they naturally started fighting. What surprised Ning Shu was that the skinny little girl actually knew martial arts. But it wasn't that profound. She could deal with one or two people at once. Ning Shu felt very conflicted. Which side should she help now? Or should she join in the fight and fight the three sides together? Xianyuan Hao's martial arts were indeed very high. Basically, everyone was besieging Xianyuan Hao. But Xianyuan Hao was calm and composed. It didn't seem like it was strenuous at all. His martial arts were indeed high. Ning Shu picked up a stone by his foot. He wrapped it in his qi and threw it at Xianyuan Hao. Xianyuan Hao turned around and stretched out his hand. He directly shattered the stone that Ning Shu threw into powder. Ning Shu was speechless. He always met awesome people with cheats. Damn it! Who? Xianyuan Hao coldly shouted. Ning Shu directly picked up a large stone and threw it at Xianyuan Hao. Xianyuan Hao still split the stone with his palm. He stared at Ning Shu. Who are you? Ah, it's you. The armored girl looked at Ning Shu. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's best if you don't interfere. This matter isn't something a commoner like you can interfere with. Little Ku, who is this person? Xianyuan Hao asked the girl. She's a villager from the village below Baiyun Temple. She even took your pulse before. Little Ku said. Her skills don't seem like an ordinary village woman. The high priest and his group also looked at Ning Shu cautiously. Ning Shu said, I'm just passing by. You should return the spirit stones to them. Hundreds of lives. Since you're a war god, you must be able to use soldiers like a god. Do you still need spirit stones? Ning Shu said casually. Then what about the millions of people who founded the country? Little Ku said. Then should they be sacrificed? Ning Shu asked back. Sacrificing a few to save the many. You have to ask if they are willing to sacrifice. Little Ku said, you don't know how hard the general worked for the sake of the people who founded the country. Little girl, you must be a die-hard fan of your general. Ning Shu said with a smile. What little girl? Who are you calling little girl? I'm just a little small, but I'm still a man. Ning Shu was speechless. Was she blind, or were the others blind? Sure enough, for the sake of the plot, she was blind. Ning Shu couldn't help but ask Xianyuan Hao, do you think she's a girl or a boy? Of course I believe in little Ku. Although little Ku's body is a little thin, I'm still a man. Ning Shu nodded. As long as you're happy. The high priest Ning Shu said, you're right. Our people are content with our territory and have never thought of harming others. That's right. It's already so difficult for us to live. The person beside the high priest said. What does this have to do with you? Think before you act. The general is not only a war god, he's also a king. You're just a village woman with a child. Think carefully about everything. Little Ku said. Ning Shu's face was expressionless. Are you threatening me? No, I'm just used to it. I'm a strategist. I like to think about all kinds of problems. Little Ku said. A female strategist? A love story between a general and a strategist? Xian Yuanhao didn't say much, but his attitude was firm. It was obvious that he didn't want to hand over the spirit stone. The high priest said, "This is already the last spiritual stone. If there are any extra spiritual stones, we'll just swallow them. Without the spirit stone, our people will die." Ning Shu sighed. It seemed that she couldn't get the spirit stone. If she really did, she would have to shoulder the responsibility of hundreds of lives. Damn, Ning Shu couldn't shoulder such a huge responsibility. But the spirit stone was such a treasure. If even 2333 coveted it, Ning Shu coveted it even more. A world that could be built sturdily could prevent the world from being damaged and eroded. This was a good thing. Chapter 1230. Sister-in-law, thank you for speaking up for justice. The high priest Ning Shu cupped his hands. I'm actually not even 15 yet. Ning Shu said quietly. The high priest was silent for a moment. You gave birth quite early. General. Xiao Ku looked at Xian Yuanhao. What should we do now? The easiest way is to kill all of them. Xian Yuanhao said. Xiao Ku nodded. This time, Xian Yuanhao brought out his true strength and killed a person with a single slap. Ah, see. Xian Yuanhao. The high priest stared at Xian Yuanhao. You killed my people. Both sides were on the verge of exploding as they fought with all their might. Ning Shu directly held Xiao Ku hostage. Xiao Ku had some martial arts but couldn't compare to Ning Shu. Hand over the thing or I'll strangle her to death. Ning Shu grabbed Xiao Ku's neck. Let go of Xiao Ku. Xian Yuanhao anxiously shouted at Ning Shu. Give me the thing and I'll let her go. Ning Shu lifted his chin and said. General, don't worry about me. You can't give the spirit stone to her. Xiao Ku sadly shouted, don't worry about me. The spirit stone is the most important. Ning Shu, this time, she was really playing the role of an evil female supporting character. Let go of Xiao Ku and I'll give it to you. Xian Yuanhao took out a palm-sized stone. This stone was relatively thick and completely black. It wasn't even as big as Li San Lang's memorial tablet. General, don't be like this. We worked so hard to find this thing. Don't give it to her because of me. Xiao Ku anxiously said. At the same time, she was very moved. For her, the general handed over the spirit stone. Give it to her. Ning Shu lifted his chin in the direction of the high priest. Xian Yuanhao calmly threw the stone to the high priest. The high priest quickly caught it. High priest, is this true? It's true, it's true. The high priest held the stone to her chest and let out a long sigh of relief. Great, we found the spirit stone. Xian Yuanhao's face was ashen. Ning Shu gritted his teeth and said, can you let go of Xiao Ku now? Ning Shu grabbed Coco's neck and retreated. He said to the high priestess, hurry up and leave. Sister-in-law, thank you. The high priest ran off with his men. Ning Shu, wait for me. Let's go together, you short-sighted village woman. Do you know how many people die at the border every day? So many soldiers have been buried at the border. So many mothers and wives are waiting for their sons and husbands to return. Do you know what you are doing? With spirit stones, how many lives can be saved? The country relies on these soldiers to protect it, Xiao Ku said in a sharp voice. Soldiers protecting their country is their responsibility. War is the ambition of those in power. Don't make it sound so noble, Ning Shu said indifferently. The sound of a leader's voice is his duty in his position. You're so cold-blooded, Coco said angrily. I am that cold-blooded, Ning Shu said shamelessly. Little girl, which family's young miss are you? Ning Shu grabbed her neck and asked, does your family know that you joined the army? Could it be that women in this world can join the army? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you blind? Why do you insist that I'm a woman? Coco said angrily. She looked at Xianyuan Hao. General, don't listen to her nonsense. I'm not a woman, I'm a man. I'm with you every day. You should know that. Ning Shu rolled his eyes again and again. Ning Shu saw that time was running out and pushed Coco toward Xianyuan Hao. Xianyuan Hao quickly hugged Coco. Ning Shu sent out a palm attack. The palm energy went straight toward Xinjun, who was behind Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned around and released his dragon-shaped energy. The dragon-shaped energy collided with the palm energy and made a loud sound. Ning Shu held Xinjun in his arms and then followed the trail to catch up with the High Priest's group. The High Priest turned his head and saw Ning Shu. Why are you here? I offended Xianyuan Hao. If I don't run, what else can I do? Ning Shu said. The High Priest nodded, that's true. This time, I have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to get the spirit stones back. Aren't you afraid that I'll steal your spirit stones? Ning Shu said with a smile. The High Priest quickly covered his chest and looked at Ning Shu with vigilance. You also came for the spirit stones. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. He felt that these people were really easy to fool. I have nowhere to go now, so I'll go with you. It's not easy for a widow to raise a child. Ning Shu looked at the High Priest. Can you take me in? The High Priest nodded without hesitation, sure. This time, we have to thank you for helping us get the spirit stones. Otherwise, the people in our village wouldn't have lived long. Ning Shu returned to the village and took the medical book he had written. He then went to the cow pen to lead the cow. Let's go quickly. Otherwise, Xianyuan Hao will chase after us. But it's a bit slow to lead a cow. The High Priest looked at the cow and said with some worry. Ning Shu patted the cow, run. The cow let out a cry and began to run happily. High Priest, everyone hurried on their way. Along the way, Ning Shu came in contact with these people and found that this group of people was really quite simple. It was estimated that they rarely came in contact with the outside world. They were so simple that Ning Shu was embarrassed to joke. It was obviously a joke, but they actually took it seriously. On the way, Ning Shu occasionally stopped to boil milk for Xinjun. These people didn't wash their faces for several days. The High Priest explained that these herbs could resist the damage of the sun. Once their people basked in the sun, their bodies would be damaged. Ning Shu had never heard of such a problem. Ning Shu stretched out his hand to take the High Priest's pulse. Did his body have any defects? Ning Shu took his pulse. His body was healthy and normal. Ning Shu always felt that these people were just imagining things. They always felt that, I can't bask in the sun. If I bask in the sun, my body hurts and I feel like I'm going to die. Their bodies formed a conditioned reflex. There's nothing wrong with it. Ning Shu withdrew his hand and said. The High Priest shook his head. Children will die after basking in the sun for a few days. Ning Shu, huh? What is that shark pearl? Ning Shu asked. It should be the inner core of a merman. After all, there were ghosts, snakes, and mermen in this world. Ning Shu wasn't surprised at all. It was true, it was true. It's the inner core of a type of fish in the sea. It's a sea demon. The High Priest said. Ning Shu nodded. How many pieces of this spirit stone are there? This stone was originally one piece, but it was damaged by someone and a piece was stolen. Now, there's only this small piece left. The High Priest said whatever he wanted to say. And it's someone from the village. Sigh, from the looks of it, Li San Lang's memorial tablet was leaked from the hands of these people. Maybe someone sold it to the Li family. Ning Shu stayed in the Li family for a while and didn't notice any experts in the Li family. Ning Shu fed the cold milk to Junjun. Junjun, who was full, looked at these people curiously. Ning Shu was actually curious about the high priest's goo and how to make it. Ning Shu asked the high priest for advice. The high priest didn't hide and told Ning Shu how to make the goo. Chapter 1231. Goo worms were ever-changing, evolving into all kinds of goo worms. There were insects, animals, and even plants. Golden toad goo, just imagining those goo worms breaking out of the body was simply terrifying. Ning Shu really wanted to learn. Learning how to make goo worms was a skill that could be used in the future. Even if he couldn't get the spirit stones, he had to gain something. These people lived deep in the mountains, there were many animals, plants, and all kinds of poisonous things that gave birth to goo worms. The high priest sighed, looks like we have to move when we go back. We can't live in that place anymore. Our ancestors have lived there for generations. We can't find a more suitable place. Ning Shu comforted, there will be a place to live. Ning Shu felt that the people in this village were lacking something. Maybe their bodies lacked some trace elements, so they were afraid of the sun. Could they be zombies? However, these people didn't look like walking corpses. Wouldn't they lack calcium if they didn't bask in the sun? If they lived with these people, would they also become like that? Ning Shu was speechless as he thought about it. They didn't dare to stay for long and rushed back to the village. Everyone in this village lived deep in the mountains and forests, and they cultivated a village in a place. It was broad daylight, and no one in the village was wandering outside. The high priest explained, without the protection of the spirit stones, the villagers don't dare to come out. The high priest came to a place that looked like an ancestral temple. There was a stone statue in the ancestral temple, and the carving was very rough. Ning Shu couldn't tell what it was at all. It looked like a person. There was a depression in the body of the stone statue, and the high priest placed the spirit stones in the depression. Ning Shu felt the ancestral temple become cold, without the warmth of the sun. Ning Shu came out of the ancestral temple and looked up at the sky. Even the sunlight wasn't glaring, as if it was blocked by an invisible layer. This was a barrier. Ning Shu looked at the stone statue. How could this stone statue make the barrier stone release a barrier? There were too many unsolved mysteries in the world, and many things could not be explained. This stone statue is an expert. This expert gave us a chance of survival, allowing us to live under the sun without being harmed by the sun. The high priest placed the mermaid pearl in the depression on the wall, then knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the stone statue. The high priest is back, the high priest is back. The villagers hiding in their houses felt that the sunlight was blocked. They all came out of their houses and began to sing and dance. The villagers who followed the high priest out washed off the patterns on their faces, revealing pale faces. Their faces were red and white from the sun's burns, as if they were seriously ill. Ning Shu couldn't help but wonder if it was really that serious. If they were albinos, they didn't see these people with snow-white skin. The villagers' skin color was very normal. The high priest gathered the villagers and said, "We are going to move now. The one who stole the spirit stones was the general who founded the country. When the time comes, they will lead the army to attack us. How could this be? I don't want to leave this place." The high priest's expression was a little pained. After returning to the village, the high priest washed his face clean. The high priest was older than Ning Shu had imagined. In order to survive, we have to move. Everyone, go back and pack your things. Don't bring too many things, or it will affect the speed of the journey. The high priest waved his hand and said, "Go back and pack your things." Then, "High priest, where are we moving to?" Let's move first and settle down when we find a suitable place. In short, we have to leave this place and avoid the town, the high priest said. Some people couldn't help but wipe their tears. Moving was simply a narrow escape for them. On the way, the sun would shine on them, and they might even die on the way. After the high priest finished speaking, Ning Shu coughed and said, "Actually, there is another way. We don't have to move." "What is it?" the high priest asked. Unless it was a last resort, the high priest wouldn't let the entire village move. Ning Shu said, "Give me your mermaid pearl. This will be the eye of the array. We can set up an array and set up a concealment spell. Will this work?" the high priest asked uncertainly. Ning Shu said calmly, "Other than this, you can only move. I heard that your children might die from exposure to the sun. If your children die, your clan might really be wiped out. Give me the mermaid pearl. If it doesn't work, we'll talk about it," Ning Shu said. The high priest hesitated for a while, but in the end, he went to the ancestral temple to get the pearl and gave it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu cast a spell and asked the villagers to help move the stones. She set up a huge array to hide the entire village so that outsiders couldn't see it. At the same time, she set up an 8 trigrams array around the village to make people get lost and not be able to reach the village. She made use of trees and stones. It took Ning Shu a lot of effort to do these things. He had used up all his life's skills. The high priest asked uncertainly, "This will do. We won't be able to see it." The word "unreliable" was almost written on the high priest's face. "Even I would get lost in the surrounding array." "High priest, I'll bring you out to take a look." Ning Shu led the high priest out of the village. They turned left and right, making the high priest dizzy. "It's so difficult to walk. What about the people in the village who go out to hunt?" the high priest asked. They spent most of their time in the village, but they had to go out. The herbs could help them temporarily resist the sun. "Open a path for the villagers," Ning Shu said. The high priest nodded. That's good, that's good. We don't know how to repay you. Why are you helping us?" the high priest asked. Ning Shu said sadly, "I have to find a place to live." "With your ability, you can go anywhere," the high priest said. "This method is similar to an expert." Ning Shu smiled and said, "I'm not that capable. There are many capable people in this world. High priest, can you give us a place to stay?" The high priest agreed and told the villagers that they didn't have to move. Ignoring how happy the villagers were, the high priest got the villagers to help Ning Shu build a house. In a few days, a straw hut was built. As it was deep in the mountains, there were all kinds of snakes, insects, and poisonous ants. It was a stilted house. It was moisture-proof. It was not bad. There were all kinds of things given by the villagers, such as dried meat and fresh vegetables. The high priest gave a small wild boar to Ning Shu for Ning Shu to take care of. Ning Shu wanted to say that he already had a cow and didn't want to take care of it anymore. It was tiring to have a cow, a pig, and a child. However, Ning Shu couldn't refuse such kindness. He could only accept it. The people here were more warm and simple than the villagers at the foot of Empty Baiyun. Ning Shu reclaimed the land in front of him and planted vegetables. Of course, many people helped him with the reclamation. Chapter 1232. Ning Shu almost didn't need to rush about for a living. The boss would give him some food and the West would give him some dishes. The people here didn't have money. Even if they needed something, they would think of it as an exchange. Ning Shu had a feeling of living in a primitive society. Ning Shu's life was very simple. Every day, he would carry Jinjin out to pick herbs and bask in the sun. People could not bask in the sun. Especially a child like Jinjin, who was most prone to calcium deficiency. Then he went to learn how to make goo from the high priest. Ning Shu completely gave up the idea of taking away the spirit stone. Every day, when he passed by the ancestral temple and saw the stone statue, he sighed in his heart. He had already obtained a piece. He couldn't be too greedy. These people had to rely on a piece of stone to survive. It was also very bitter. Ning Shu hammered his chest and went to the high priest's house to learn how to make goo. However, the high priest's house was really frightening. There were all kinds of strange things. It was like a water tank full of snakes. These snakes were entangled together. Oh my, it really made people's hair stand on end. The high priest said that he would give the position of high priest to Ning Shu in the future. Ning Shu waved his hand. Forget it. The high priest's position in the village was very high, but Ning Shu wasn't interested. The high priest sighed and expressed his understanding. He said that Ning Shu's body was normal and he could leave at any time. He also lamented about who he should give his skills to. Goo not only harmed people, it could also save people. For example, if a person had some disease in his body, there was rot and pus. Goo could be planted and the goo would eat the rotten flesh. However, this kind of goo was not easy to cultivate. The high priest was passed down from generation to generation. A lot of skills were passed down from generation to generation. Ning Shu only noticed one thing. For generations, it was the same village's marriage. He estimated that there were many marriages between close relatives. Could it be that there wasn't a mutated person who wasn't afraid of the sun? Ning Shu still honestly learned how to make goo. Apart from some disgusting things, Ning Shu's process of learning how to make goo was very pleasant. Ever since he went out to chase Shen Yuanhao to get back the spirit stone, the high priest's body was getting worse and worse. The high priest said that it was the sun's injury. Ning Shu was speechless. The high priest chose a clever and young child from the village to be his successor. There were still many people in the village who wanted their children to become high priests. Ning Shu was more curious about why the high priestess did not have her own children. The high priest explained that every generation of the high priest would not get married. He had to pay the price for the village. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. This was too inhumane. However, the high priest said that one had to pay a price in order to be respected. The more one wanted to be high and mighty, the more one had to pay a price. Ning Shu thought about it and also felt that it was polite. No one would respect beggars and hooligans on the streets. People would respect successful people because successful people had worked hard for it. Ning Shu was given preferential treatment in this village because she had saved the village. The days passed peacefully one day at a time. Jinjin could now sit by herself and could crawl. The high priest held Jinjin and said that he would let Jinjin be the daughter-in-law of a handsome young man in the village. Ning Shu was speechless. Shen Yuanhao and Xiaoke came back again, but they could not find the location of the village. They could not find the entrance to the village. The village seemed to have disappeared into thin air. The terrain was very complicated. After walking for a long time in the maze-like mountain forest, they got lost. It was Xiaoke who was quick-witted and lucky that they managed to get out. Shen Yuanhao even invited the master of Baiyun Temple. The old Taoist saw some clues, but he had no way to solve it. He almost got lost in the forest. Even if Shen Yuanhao was very unwilling, he had no way to find the entrance. Power, that was a powerful power. Those country bumpkins used it to block the sun. Xiaoke could not help but say, it's all because of that meddlesome village woman. The old Taoist flicked his horsetail whisk. That was not a village woman. Previously, she was a bride who was buried with him. She ran away. She's still this kind of person. Xiaoke sighed. The old Taoist shook his head and said, arrogant and unruly. She has no etiquette in her heart. Whoever meets this kind of woman will be unlucky. The most infuriating thing was that they could not deal with her. Xiaoke nodded. It's quite unlucky. Originally, General had already gotten the spirit stones, but that village woman jumped out and insisted on helping that group of people. Her heart is especially hard. Xiaoke had never seen such a woman. General, I'm sorry. It's all because of me. If I wasn't so weak, I would have asked General to exchange the spirit stones for me. Xiaoke felt very guilty. Xian Yuanhao looked at Xiaoke. If I were to choose again, I would still do the same. Spirit stones are inanimate objects. What this general needs is a resourceful military counselor. Xiaoke's eyes were somewhat red. Thank you, General. Looking at Xian Yuanhao's eyes, there was an indescribable tenderness. The group of people muttered about Ning Shu and silently returned. Ning Shu sneezed and fed porridge to Jinjin. He put down the bowl and touched his forehead. Did he catch a cold? After feeding her, Ning Shu carried Jinjin outside the barrier to bask in the sun. While he was at it, he chatted with some intelligent animals in the forest. For example, he asked where to find medicinal herbs and so on. Generally, only animals with intelligence could answer Ning Shu's questions. This restriction within a certain range of intelligence was a bit big. Ning Shu recorded medicinal herbs one by one in the book. Medicinal properties, main treatment and so on. Every day, he recorded medicinal herbs. Ning Shu had already written a thick book. The days were dull but fulfilling. Ning Shu himself had also successfully refined some gu, but they were all simple gu. After staying in the village for a long time, Ning Shu also slowly understood the village. He heard that every generation of high priest had a gu. This gu was passed down to the next generation when the high priest of the previous generation was about to die. He heard that it was called Thousand King gu. What Ning Shu cared more about was, could this gu live for so long? It was too unscientific. Ning Shu wanted to see this Thousand King gu, but the high priest said that this gu worm would not come out. It would only come out when the high priest was about to die and enter the body of the next high priest. The Thousand King gu's function was to protect the high priest from being harmed by the restless gu when he was refining gu. Ning Shu, it's really getting more and more mysterious. Does this gu exist or not? It seems that she has no chance to see gu. Ning Shu ran to the high priest's house every time to refine gu. He didn't want to make his house smelly. Especially some poisonous insects and snakes, what if they come out and bite Jinjin? Slowly, Ning Shu mastered the skill of refining gu and became more and more skilled. Ning Shu found that injecting a little spiritual energy into the urn would make the competition in the urn more intense, and the final winner would be stronger than the general gu. Ning Shu was happy in his heart. He had mastered another skill. As long as the conditions permit, he could refine gu. Whether it was gu that saved people or harmed people, Ning Shu learned them all. There was no harm in having more skills. Ning Shu felt that the current task was getting more and more difficult. He couldn't complete the task without some preparation. He had to stand at the top. It was good to be alive. Chapter 1233. The high priest Ning Shu asked, "Haven't you ever thought of a solution to your situation?" Ning Shu had always been thinking about the boundary stone of the ancestral temple. If it was a win-win situation, it would be really great. If there was a boundary stone, the world she built would be much tougher. The high priest said, "We will find a solution again. When we go out, we will apply herbs." Ning Shu, is there a possibility that you self-hypnotized yourself that you can actually bask in the sun? Ning Shu spread out his hands. The high priest shook his head. The ancestors once tried to put a child who was only a few months old under the sun, but the child finally died. Such a small child, his spiritual wisdom had not yet developed. Unlike adults, he had fear and emotions, but he died. Ning Shu, if it was a child, there would be no problem with diet. It could only be a natural problem. Ning Shu swallowed a mouthful of saliva and felt stifled. After so many years, have you found the problem? No. The high priest said. The high priest said, but we found some herbs one after another. These herbs can temporarily protect us from the sun for a while. Ning Shu rolled his eyes until his pupils couldn't be seen. No, I won't. When Ning Shu passed by the ancestral temple, he couldn't help but beat his heart. He completely gave up on this idea. This villager couldn't leave this thing. But it was also a very dangerous thing. It was like a child holding gold to pass through the downtown area. If you encountered someone who didn't know the goods, then forget about it. If you encountered someone who knew the goods, such as Xian Yuan Hao, who had power and military strength, and wanted to rob your things, you could only watch. But they had survived until now, maybe they had some way to deal with it. Junjun's height was very fast, and her clothes were soon unwearable. Don't look at the backward village, there were no fancy clothes and jewelry, but the food was really not bad. All kinds of game, all kinds of delicacies, Junjun's food was really not bad. She had milk every day, and there were mushrooms given by the villagers. Ning Shu chopped them with meat and made them for Junjun. In addition, Ning Shu always injected a little spiritual energy into Junjun's body from time to time. His body and bones were too sturdy. Junjun was white and tender. Ning Shu used a red rope to braid her hair. She was really well behaved and moving. Wherever she went, she could let her aunt and her little daughter-in-law hug and pinch her. There were also some young boys who surrounded Junjun every day, helping Ning Shu take care of the children. Ning Shu, all of them were imps with bad intentions. Now Junjun could inarticulately call Ning Shu's mother. Some villagers saw that Junjun's clothes were too small, so they took the old clothes and gave them to Ning Shu, letting Ning Shu change them to make clothes for the child. Ning Shu didn't take it. In this village, cloth was a very precious item. Because they couldn't go out, and because they were living in seclusion, no merchants knew about this place, so they wouldn't come here to sell things. Even if they came to sell, the villagers didn't have the money. Ning Shu would go to the town to buy some things, but the distance was very far. It would take him 2 to 3 days to go there and back. Ning Shu went to buy some cloth to make clothes for Junjun. Some people in the village asked Ning Shu to bring some things. After all, they couldn't go out for too long. Ning Shu agreed one by one. Ning Shu first went to the medicinal hall to sell some ginseng. The money from selling ginseng was used to buy things. After buying things, he planned to go back to the village. However, Ning Shu had been walking in circles because he found that someone was following him. The price of ginseng was not cheap. With such a huge amount of money, it was inevitable that it would attract covetous eyes. Of course, it didn't rule out that the people in the medicinal hall wanted to rob him. Ning Shu carried Junjun on his back and walked around the market. He bought a lot of things. There was flour, a little rice, some vegetable seeds, fruit saplings. The people behind him had been following him. Ning Shu was very calm and continued to buy the things that the villagers entrusted him to buy. He dragged a large bag of things out of the town. As soon as he went out of the town, he was blocked by 4 strong men. Ning Shu put the things on the ground and looked at the 4 people. He clenched his fists and moved his wrists. Hand over the money. A man fiercely shouted at Ning Shu and stretched out his big hand. Ning Shu curled his lips and said, "When did I owe you money?" "Less nonsense, hand over the money, otherwise, you will have a good fruit to eat." The strong man coldly said and pointed to Junjun who was on Ning Shu's back, "Your child will also be sold." Junjun's pair of black grape-like eyes stared at these people. He estimated that she didn't know what these people wanted to do and giggled. Junjun was a child who didn't recognize strangers. Ning Shu moved his neck, and his neck issued a "kacha-kacha" sound. What a waste of his height. Of all the things he could do, he just had to become a bandit. Ning Shu didn't use 1/10 of his strength, but these people fell to the ground and couldn't get up. The 4 people clutched their stomachs and groaned in pain, lying on the ground and couldn't get up. Ning Shu carried the things and stepped on the hands of these people, crushing them with 1 foot and 1 hand. Ouch, pain. Hand. These people held their hands. The place where Ning Shu stepped on was purple, and the back of their hands were swollen. Ning Shu said with a smile, "Next time I see you robbing, I will trample your hands into pancakes." The 4 people fled in panic. Ning Shu carried the things and went back. Back in the village, those villagers who asked Ning Shu to bring things didn't have money to give Ning Shu. They used the meat and animal fur at home to exchange with Ning Shu. Ning Shu also exchanged. Later, the fur will be used to make a small vest for Jinjin. Fur was a very expensive thing. When it was time to make clothes, Ning Shu found that his female workers were not very good. Making clothes, making shoes, and so on, they were really not good at it. Ning Shu reluctantly made a small underwear for Jinjin. For large clothes, Ning Shu could only ask other people to help. Ning Shu followed to learn how to thread a needle. He didn't want to be a good wife and mother, he didn't want to be able to embroider embroidery that could attract butterflies. But in case his pants were torn in the future, he could mend it by himself. In case he encountered a more extreme environment, he might be able to use it. In order to be more convenient, he found it troublesome now, but in the future, he could only be caught unprepared. After that, Ning Shu also made a few sets of clothes for himself. Although it was not very good looking, it was still quite comfortable to wear. After all, in this place, no one cared much about how good looking it was, as long as it was practical and convenient. She was also a person who could be a tailor. The high priest's body was getting worse and worse, especially after the weather became cold. He had to lie in bed for the whole day. The high priest called Ning Shu in front of him and asked Ning Shu to help take care of his successor, the next high priest. A 7 or 8-year-old child was squatting beside the bed, looking at the high priest wiping his tears. Ning Shu took the high priest's pulse and somewhat speechlessly said, "Are you really unable to do it, or are you just scaring yourself? Your body is weak, but it is not to the point of death. I am still clear about my own body." The high priest said, "Last time when Shenyuan Hao removed the goo, my body had some backlash." Ning Shu remembered that last time the high priest vomited a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1234. Ning Shu checked the high priest's pulse again and injected some spiritual energy into the high priest's body, saying, "Your body is very good, you can still live for a long time. I have a ginseng at home, you can take it to replenish your energy. You are tired from chasing Shenyuan Hao some time ago." Ning Shu said. Ning Shu still wants the high priest to live. The high priest is a good person, a kind old man. The high priest shook his head, "My time is coming, the 1,000 king goo in my body is beginning to become restless." Ning Shu replied with an "oh," and then transferred some spirit qi into the high priest's body. Ning Shu did not pass on the peerless martial arts. After all, this is not the cultivation world. Although it is somewhat mysterious, the peerless martial arts are still beyond the power system of this world. It directly absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Ning Shu checked the high priest's pulse every other day. Every time he checked the pulse, he would inject some spiritual energy into the high priest. He also gave a ginseng to the high priest's disciple to boil some soup for him. Ning Shu asked, "Is the 1,000 king goo in your body harmful to your body?" Ning Shu had goosebumps just thinking about the insect in his body. Of course, Ning Shu did not have goosebumps when he used the goo on others. No, the 1,000 king goo and the high priest of the past generations complement each other. If the 1,000 king goo wants to survive, it must be in the human body. The high priest said. Ning Shu nodded. It turned out to be a symbiotic relationship. It's amazing. The high priest's body is a little better, he can walk around when he has nothing to do. However, teaching his disciple is really simple and crude, he just stuffed everything to his disciple. Ning Shu thought that the high priest could live for a while. In the middle of the night, the high priest's disciple knocked on Ning Shu's door and cried to Ning Shu, "The high priest is dying." Ning Shu froze for a moment, holding Jinjin, he went to the high priest's place. There are already many villagers, these villagers are crying in a low voice. His expression was sorrowful, and it was clear that he was sincere. Ning Shu walked into the house and saw the haggard high priest. The flesh on his face had shrunk, and he was really all skin and bones. Ning Shu was puzzled. "Why are you so skinny? When he came here yesterday to refine the goo, it was not like this. The myriad king goo absorbed it. Since it's going to turn into ashes anyway, let it have a good meal." The high priest calmly said. The myriad king goo absorbed the remaining vitality in his body. Ning Shu, fuck, the high priestess really wasn't done by a human. In just a short while, the outside of the house was filled with people kneeling and kowtowing to the high priest in the house. With great difficulty, the high priest said to Ning Shu, "Help me take care of him. He can become the high priest of his clan." Ning Shu comforted the high priest, "He will. He will definitely become the most outstanding high priest." The high priest closed his eyes and his body trembled. A golden worm crawled out of his mouth. This worm looked like a silkworm, its whole body was golden and it moved very slowly. How could such a powerless guy be trained to become a goo king? The myriad king goo crawled out of the high priest's mouth and slowly climbed onto the successor high priest's palm. It emitted a fragrant smell. The successor high priest was a bit scared, but he still opened his mouth. The myriad king goo crawled into the successor high priest's mouth. The successor high priest gulped it down. Ning Shu couldn't help but stretch his neck and gulp down his saliva. "Fuck me." The high priest said a few words and then breathed his last. The high priest's death plunged the village into a sorrowful atmosphere. The villagers followed tradition and held the most complicated and cumbersome funeral. Ning Shu also wore mourning clothes. After experiencing so many worlds, Ning Shu found this village to be the place with the purest people. These people didn't have much ambition and lived in seclusion. They didn't have exquisite jewelry, beautiful clothes, or brothels. They worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. It was very simple. Sure enough, people's pain came from their desires. They struggled in their desires. They struggled in their love and hate. They hated each other, they loved each other, they couldn't get what they wanted. Many kinds of pain were things they couldn't get what they wanted. Since ancient times, from the high officials to the common people, most of them tortured themselves because they couldn't get what they wanted. They tried their best, they used all kinds of tricks, they schemed, they fought openly and secretly, but in the end, they killed their loved ones. Even Ning Shu was now begging to be able to live and build his own world. After the funeral, the successor high priest, who was only 7 or 8 years old, became the high priest and lived next to the ancestral temple where the high priest lived. Ning Shu made some delicious food for the young high priest when he had nothing to do. However, the high priest didn't need to cook himself. Every family in the village took turns to deliver food to the high priest. The best food in the house was given to the high priest. Ning Shu went to see the high priest when he had nothing to do. After all, the high priest asked him to make some extra clothes for the high priest when it was cold. Although the days were monotonous, Ning Shu's heart was very calm. No matter how vigorous the days were, in the end, they would return to this kind of peace, unless they died vigorously. Ning Shu imagined that one day, he would sit on a rocking chair and watch the world that belonged to him change, the clouds move, the white clouds change, the white dogs change. It was very cool. However, when could he gather the world's origin? Damn, ding, mission completed, do you want to leave the mission world? A mechanical voice sounded, it wasn't 2333's voice. Ning Shu, 2333 sleeping again. Ning Shu lamented in his heart. The boundary stone was in front of him, he could reach out and take it, but he couldn't take it. AI Ning Shu kissed Chinjin's forehead, I hope you will be a strong child in the future. Ning Shu hammered his heart, damn, boundary stone. Leave. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu's head was dizzy, he opened his eyes again, and then his whole person was stunned. Damn, this was his system space. The surrounding walls had cracks the size of a thumb, the cracks on the walls were like spider webs. This was after the earthquake. The system space was a mess, bookshelves fell to the ground, books were scattered all over the floor. There was a black hole in the wall. Ning Shu, what's this situation? Ning Shu asked with a face full of confusion. Next, read 2333 System's last words. The system said mechanically. Ning Shu, last words. My energy is now exhausted, it wasn't easy for the system space to not collapse, now the virtual space channel is closed, shut down the system that can be shut down to save energy, I will go into a deep sleep to save energy, I will use the backup system to help you complete the mission. The mainframe needed a lot of energy to operate, the current 2333 didn't have any extra energy to support it. Ning Shu, fate is full of troubles. This 2333 is really, he had never seen a system with so many disasters. Chapter 1235. The number of times 2333 malfunctioned made Ning Shu doubt life. She was unlucky to meet a system like 2333. Or 2333 was unlucky to meet a mission enforcer like her. Next time, she would ask other people if their systems were the same. 2333 was always spending more than he earned. Amen. Let him go. Ning Shu drew a cross in front of her chest. 2333 also said that if there is no more energy, the system space may collapse. Once the system space collapses, the spirit orb will be lost. Who knows where it will be lost? Ning Shu, cough, cough, cough. This was revenge. Imagine if the system space exploded, the spirit orb would definitely be lost. Ning Shu thought for a moment and said, next mission, see if there are any system missions. Even if it was for the spirit orb, he couldn't let the system space collapse. Okay. The system's voice was very mechanical, without a trace of human. Ning Shu picked up the bookshelf that fell on the ground and placed the book on the shelf. The system space was full of cracks. Above and below his feet were cracks of various sizes. Ning Shu couldn't help but be careful with his feet. He was afraid that if he stepped on the cracks, the system space would explode into pieces. Ning Shu tiptoed, walked to the side of the sofa, held his breath, and carefully sat cross-legged on the sofa and began to cultivate. After he finished cultivating, Ning Shu touched his face and felt that his soul had become stronger. Great! Ning Shu rippled for a while and opened the status panel. Probably due to the lack of energy, the status panel was almost transparent and the words on it couldn't be seen clearly. Ning Shu craned her neck and narrowed her eyes as she stared at the attribute panel. Number, 2333 Name, Ning Shu Advanced Mission Enforcer Age, 27 points, 54 million Soul, 340 Life, 131 Wisdom, 364 Charm, 50 Luck, 229 Spirit, 260 Faith, 17515 Martial Strength, 392 Aptitude, 149 Merit, 13710 Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Close Combat Technique, Exceptional Martial Arts Proficiency, Intermediate Poison Technique, Beginner Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Goo Technique. Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Items, Calm Halo, Tranquilizer, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Aura, Mother of the World Empress Blessing, Model Worker Sister Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura Grass blessing, lifelong friend Meow Meow Meow's blessing, life-saving hand Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding female general Chen Ermiai's blessing, lawful beauty Chen Ning's blessing, transcending race communication by San Yang's blessing. Note, communication can only be achieved within a certain range of wisdom. Fulfill Lu Xiaoya's wish, get rid of Li San Lang, and leave the Li family. Mission completion rate, 100 points. Mission rewards, 5 million general points, 40 attribute points, 3,000 faith power, 150 merit points. Not bad. Faith power was always more than merit points. Merit points were too hard to come by. Most likely, this faith power was accumulated from the previous worlds. Perhaps the power of faith was the first standard to reach the level of a super mission taker. Ning Shu distributed the attribute points. Serial number, 2333 name, Ning Shu senior mission taker age, 27 points, 54,000,000/5,000,000 soul value, 340 health value, 131 wisdom value, 36410 charm value, 50 luck value, 22910 mental power, 26010 faith power, 175153000 martial power, 39210 aptitude, 14910 merit, 13710 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, exceptional martial arts proficiency, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill. Sage ghost catching skill, beginner goo technique. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Aura, Heart Setting Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Aura, Mother of the World Empress Blessing, Model Worker Sister Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend Meow Meow Meow's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Female General Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty Chen Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication by San Yang's Blessing. Note, communication can only be achieved within a certain range of wisdom. After adding the attribute points, Ning Shu took a book from the bookshelf and started reading. After flipping through the book, Ning Shu sat cross-legged and put on the Buddha bead bracelet. He started to chant the clear heart mantra to calm his heart. With the Buddha bead bracelet, heart-setting pill, and clear heart mantra, Ning Shu felt that he could ascend to nirvana and become Buddha. Anger clouded his mind. Only by maintaining a calm heart could he complete the mission. Otherwise, if he couldn't complete the mission, he might be killed. Even if he was angered to death and went crazy on the spot, he had to calm down. After chanting the clear heart mantra, Ning Shu felt that his mind was clear and his mind was clear. Ning Shu said, "Enter the mission." "Okay." A mechanical voice sounded, emotionless. Ning Shu felt dizzy for a moment and slowly merged into a body. After his soul and body completely merged, Ning Shu opened his eyes and looked at the decorations around him. It was a modern style and there were posters on the wall. It was a picture of a handsome man. It was probably a celebrity. There was the sound of car horns outside the window. This was the modern era. Ning Shu sat up and rubbed his head. His nose was a little stuffy. He probably caught a cold. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. There was little spiritual energy in the modern era. Ning Shu cultivated for a while and only sweated a lot. However, he felt much more comfortable and his nose was cleared. Ning Shu took a piece of tissue to wipe the sweat on his face and then began to accept the plot. The original owner was called Hu Duo. She was 22 years old and was still in college. However, she would drop out of school soon. The reason was that the person opposite Hu Duo, a boy who had been playing with her since childhood, was called. He had graduated from college, but he had been staying at home and didn't go out to look for a job. Even if he found a job, he would quit after a few days. Sometimes, the boss looked down on him. Sometimes, it was because the work was too tiring. He had graduated from college. How could he do these things? People looked down on him if he had a good salary. However, he felt that those tiring jobs didn't match his identity. After all, he was a college graduate. In the end, he decided to stay at home and live off his old age. He wore a vest and flip-flops every day. He was unkempt and played games on the computer every day. He slept until noon every day, completely ignoring his parents' feelings. He had conflicts with his family and resented his parents for not being rich. Chapter 1236. If his parents were rich, he would have enough money to do a good business. There was no need to look at other people's faces. When he saw people driving luxury cars, he would feel indignant and say that they would reincarnate. When he saw beautiful girls wearing branded clothes, he would say that they had a sugar daddy and call them Godfather. Shameless. But his eyes would stare at them. He was sensitive and arrogant. Arrogance was to cover up his inferiority. He had achieved nothing and still thought that he was unrecognized. It was this kind of loser who complained, blamed society, and blamed his parents that got a system. This system was called the beauty-pushing system. From the name, one could tell that it was a system for picking up girls. Picking up girls could lead one to the peak of life. The system would give a score based on the girls the host met. It would give a score based on the girl's facial features, body proportions, and family background. The total score was 100 points. For example, if a girl had a pair of long legs, was very beautiful, and had a good family background, she might score 98 points. Those who scored 90 points and above were all top-grade beauties. If it was a fat girl, she might only score 30 or 40 points. She would fail completely and not be worth picking up. Girls below the passing score were not the system's targets. There were various rewards for missions. For example, a girl with 70 points could say that she liked him, or he could touch the thigh of a beauty with 80 points, or he could let a beauty with 90 points kiss him. Completing missions could give him a reward. It might be to improve his face and make him more handsome. Or it might be cash. He could also choose to make himself bigger. His ability would be off the charts and he would be able to conquer girls. Of course, the ultimate goal was to push, push, push. As long as it was a beauty, there was no one who could not be flirted with. As long as it was a beauty, even if she was taken, she would be poached. A beautiful wife, her husband must be a cruel and heartless scumbag who ate, drank, whored, and gambled. He had to save the lonely and pitiful wife. Even if it was an engaged daughter, her fiancé must be a rich second generation who squandered money like water and had no ability. A stupid and ugly second generation. How could she be happy if she married such a person? This was to save the daughter's happiness. A beauty who lacked money, save. A beauty who lacked love, save. A beautiful teacher, a pure school beauty, a cute lowly, an enchanting dancer, a gentle nurse, a hot policewoman, a domineering female CEO, a foreign beauty. Wherever there were beauties, there would be beauties. The more beauties he could get, the more points he would get, the more money he would get, the more handsome he would be, the better his figure would be, and the more powerful he would be. With the contributions of these beauties, his wealth was like a rolling snowball. The more money he had, the more girls he could flirt with. Every time he slept with a beautiful woman, the system would modify his body so that he could cultivate. He opened one dungeon after another. Not only did he flirt in his own country, but he also flirted overseas. When his cultivation reached a certain level, he would break through the plane and continue flirting in other worlds. Ning Shu, even the universe can't contain you. To him, these beauties were just like playing a game. They were just small monsters in the game. He had to defeat these monsters. Using all sorts of methods to defeat the monsters, using money, using warmth, using violence, or saving the damsel in distress. depending on the beauty, using different methods, using these methods to win the heart of a woman. He was simply a peerless scumbag. His ultimate goal was to push her down. But how could a man who wanted to win the hearts and bodies of all the beauties only love one woman? With the system, he had a sense of superiority. Besides, it was impossible to love so many people. Not to mention that all of them were true love, he loved all of them. Even he himself didn't believe this. How many pieces could a person's heart be divided into? So a man's thoughts were actually quite simple and violent. Beauties, so many beauties for me, and I don't even need to take responsibility. What a man wanted was only power, strength, beauty, and ability. With this system, as long as he slept with beauties, he didn't have to work like a dog, and he didn't have to bow to his boss. He only had to listen to the melodious sound of the violin with the beauties in a Western restaurant, and help the beauties cut the steak into neat little cubes. Occasionally, he would use the body that the system had made into a body of muscles to fight off hooligans and save the damsel in distress. He could easily walk to the peak of life. And when he heard the system's name, pushing the beauty system, he would be filled with adrenaline. His daily life was either pushing beauties or on the way to pushing beauties. The original owner, Duo, was the first woman who had just been pushed to the system. He didn't know any great beauties and couldn't come into contact with them. Even if he met them, he couldn't go up and touch their thighs and kiss them. Otherwise, he would be slapped and might even be sent to the police station. Perverts molesting passers-by. So he set his gaze on Duo, who was opposite him. Although Duo's appearance and figure barely passed the passing mark, she was still in the early stages of her career and didn't have any business, so she didn't mind. After all, she had just been pushed to the system and urgently wanted to know if the system was real. Was it true that he would be able to earn money and undergo a second puberty if he managed to get a girl? So, she started flirting with her childhood sweetheart and pushed it to the system. In fact, Duo's parents had always let Duo interact with the people opposite her. Those who graduated from university didn't work, were lazy, and were extremely sloppy. They could play together when they were young, but not when they grew up. After all, it was easy for a daughter to be taken advantage of. Duo also listened to her parents and distanced herself. After all, when she saw that they were dirty and slovenly, and their bodies either smelled of cigarettes or instant noodles, she had to distance herself even if she didn't want to. After that, Duo started to change her mind after some contact. Then, she was pushed to the system. Usually, women in stud novels had a very touching EQ. It felt that women under the stud horse halo were like idiots who had been blinded. They could generously share their boyfriends and husbands with other women. After obtaining his first bucket of gold from Duo, it seemed that Duo had a deep affection for him. Later, when she got pregnant, Duo dropped out of school on her own, angering her parents to death. Then, she had a miscarriage. The miscarriage had something to do with it. He only apologized, and Duo forgave him again. He went out to flirt with other beauties. Even if Duo knew about it, she felt inferior when she saw that the beauties were so beautiful. She felt that her brother was so outstanding that there must be many women who liked him. She was satisfied that she could stay by her brother's side. Duo didn't know what was wrong with her. She was clearly sad and desperate, but when she saw him, she would always forgive him easily. When he teased her, all her anger would disappear. In short, this was an extreme world, a man's lifelong pursuit. Chapter 1237. Duo had been waiting and waiting, but Luo Jiang did not marry her. Luo Jiang directly said that he would not get married. He said to Duo, "If you want to get married, you can find a man to marry." Duo was dumbfounded. She seemed to love Luo Jiang very much, so she could only wait like this. Duo felt as if she had changed into someone else. Fortunately, she had worked hard day and night in the sea of questions and finally managed to get into a university. In the end, she got pregnant and dropped out of school. After dropping out of school, she stayed around Luo Jiang every day, washing his clothes and cleaning his room. She did not go out to work for a day. Occasionally, she would feel that there was something wrong with her life. However, when she saw Luo Jiang, Hu Duo felt that she really loved Luo Jiang. Even if she broke her parents' hearts, Hu Duo felt that her choice was right and she was loyal. However, there were more and more women by Luo Jiang's side. They were like flowers in brocade, and there were too many to count. The title of 10,000 People Kill was quite suitable for Luo Jiang. Hu Duo's wish was to not be bewitched by Luo Jiang. She wanted to finish university, work, be filial to her parents, and take revenge on Luo Jiang. Hu Duo did not understand where Luo Jiang got the money to enter a high-end place and live a life of luxury cars and beautiful women. Hu Duo did not feel that she could resist Luo Jiang. Facing Luo Jiang, she did not understand why she was so humble when facing Luo Jiang. She was clearly angry, clearly in pain, clearly angry, clearly wanting to question Luo Jiang, but the words turned in her mouth twice and could not come out. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead, let out a long breath, and began to sit cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. His body was a little weak and was not conducive to movement. As he cultivated, Ning Shu heard the doorbell ring. He got off the bed and looked through the peephole. Oh, it was Luo Jiang. Ning Shu opened the door, stuck his head out and asked, "What's the matter?" Luo Jiang's gaze swept over Ning Shu's face and said with a smile, "Didn't I hear from Auntie that you had a cold? How is it? Are you feeling better?" Luo Jiang was sizing up Ning Shu, and Ning Shu was also sizing up Ning Shu. Probably to pick up girls, Luo Jiang did not wear a shirtless vest. Instead, he wore a t-shirt, jeans, and a pair of sneakers. Looking at him like this, he was different from his usual dispirited appearance. Ning Shu said, "Much better, thank you." Ning Shu said as he was about to close the door. Luo Jiang blocked the door and pretended to be sad. Duo doesn't like brother Luo Jiang anymore. Ning Shu's cold face, did she look like someone who was overflowing with maternal love? However, Ning Shu had a faint feeling in his heart that he could not refuse Luo Jiang. This was his childhood friend. This should be the effect of the halo. However, Ning Shu had exchanged for the halo of faith, which could resist curses and halos. Moreover, Ning Shu's spiritual power was not weak. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably have invited him into the house. Luo Jiang pushed open the door and walked into the living room. He saw the books on the coffee table and casually picked one up. "Are you reading calculus?" Ning Shu nodded and said, "You've already graduated from university. Advanced calculus and whatnot are too difficult. Can you explain it to me?" Luo Jiang's body stiffened. He had already returned the things from university to his teachers. He had been playing games at home for almost 2 years. What the hell was calculus? Luo Jiang placed the book on the coffee table and suddenly felt very awkward. He had not gotten off to a good start. Why was it so hard to pick up a girl? Ning Shu poured a glass of water and drank while looking at Luo Jiang. She suddenly understood why the system would choose such a person. It was because people like Luo Jiang hoped that the world would fall into their lap. Those who succeeded were all people with great perseverance. They really thought that the world would fall into their lap. Whatever the system said, Luo Jiang would do. In the end, it was because of the thought of reaping without sowing. They wanted to succeed without putting in the effort and live a superior life. This kind of person was easier for the system to control. The system was the master, and he was just a slave controlled by the system. That. The room was too quiet, making Luo Jiang feel very awkward. In addition, after graduating from university, Luo Jiang stayed at home and rarely went out. Now, he even had a language barrier. He was not someone who could speak well. The current Luo Zhang's method of picking up girls was still very rusty and immature. It was not like the state where he would be able to pass through thousands of flowers and not be touched by a single leaf. Luo Jiang tried to find a topic. I heard that a theme aquarium was recently opened. Do you want to go take a look? Ning Shu said lightly, I have a cold. I don't want to go out. Luo Jiang was silent again. This guy did not follow the rules. He could not even handle a girl with an appearance of 60 points, let alone those beautiful girls. Luo Jiang smiled awkwardly and could not help but scratch his head. I forgot that you have a cold. When you are better, I will take you there. You should rest. Ning Shu nodded. Take care. Luo Jiang was even more embarrassed. He was so embarrassed that his back was covered in sweat. His face was very tender as he slowly walked out of the door. Ning Shu closed the door with a bang. Luo Jiang stood at the door, his face alternating between green and white. He clenched his fist tightly. She was so arrogant now. When he conquered this girl, let's see if she could still be arrogant in front of him. Don't think that he did not know that Hu Duo's parents looked down on him. Now, even Hu Duo looked down on him. When he was young, he was also an outstanding student. Now that he had the system, he would definitely blind these people's dog eyes. Snobs look down on people. Luo Jiang took a deep breath, turned around, and returned home. Ning Shu changed his clothes, took a pink leather bag, and prepared to go out. All wild systems were the same. They were all parasites of the plane, absorbing the luck and laws of the plane. If the host could not collect luck for the system, the host would be abandoned. Then, what Ning Shu had to do was to make the system give up on Luo Jiang. Without the system, he was nothing. Relying on the money given by the system to beat the rich second generation and the elites of society. Without the system, there would be no income. Then where did the system get the money to push the beauty come from? If it was created by the system, a large amount of money would flow out of the system. Wouldn't it cause inflation? If it was not created by the system, then the system must have hacked the bank. Could it be that no one saw that Luo Jiang was not normal? He did not have a property, but he had an inexhaustible amount of money. Ning Shu closed the door and went to the market to buy a small clay jar. Then, he went to the pharmacy to buy herbs and silver needles. He put some herbs and some food that attracted insects and poisonous creatures in the jar. Ning Shu placed the jar inconspicuously in the park and covered it with leaves. Ning Shu did not know if there were insects that could make goo in the city. Also, he did not know if goo could be made in this world. After all, every world had its own laws. In the previous world, goo could be made, allowing strange creatures like goo to exist. Chapter 1238. This world was a modern society, so he didn't know if it was possible to make goo. Just like in modern times, there were no immortal cultivators who could fly in the sky and split mountains. This kind of power was not allowed to surpass the world's power system. Ning Shu could only try. If it didn't work, there were other ways. Ning Shu returned to the neighborhood and met Luo Jiang, who was carrying a bag of fruit. When Luo Jiang saw Ning Shu, his expression changed instantly. He became a little angry, as if he had been insulted. Luo Jiang was a very sensitive person. He always felt that people looked down on him and trampled on his dignity. Previously, he asked Hu Duo if she wanted to go to the theme aquarium. She said she didn't want to go, so he bumped into her. Ning Shu saw Luo Jiang's expression. Now, Luo Jiang looked as if he had caught his wife cheating on him. Now, it had nothing to do with him. Luo Jiang took a deep breath and walked to the front of Ning Shu with an expression of enduring humiliation. Didn't you catch a cold? Why are you still going out? Luo Jiang asked. Ning Shu asked back, can't I go out? Luo Jiang's chest rose and fell, and then he said, I'm just concerned about you. Here, I bought some fruit for you. I can't take your fruit for free. How much is it? I'll give you the money. Ning Shu opened his wallet and was about to take out money. Luo Zhang's expression suddenly became ugly. Do I look like someone who lacks a dozen yuan for fruit money? How do I know if you're someone who lacks a dozen yuan for fruit money? Why did you give me fruit? My mother said that I can't take other people's things casually. Those who eat are soft-mouthed, Ning Shu said directly. For this kind of person who cared about face, dignity, and self-esteem, you had to tear his face and trample on his dignity. Luo Jiang was so angry that he directly threw the fruit bag on the ground, turned around, and walked away angrily. The apples and oranges rolled all over the ground. Ning Shu was speechless. He had no ability, but his temper was not small. Ning Shu picked up the fruit that rolled on the ground. The apple was already broken. It was immoral to throw trash everywhere. Ning Shu casually gave the bag to a beggar on the side of the road. The two houses were facing each other. Ning Shu went upstairs and saw Luo Jiang leaning against the door of his house, waiting for her. Ning Shu ignored him and opened the door with the key. Luo Jiang touched his nose and moved closer to Ning Shu. He apologized to Ning Shu, I'm sorry for what happened just now. I shouldn't have gotten angry with you. We grew up together. You being so distant with me makes me a little sad. How can I take your things for free? Ning Shu said coldly. I heard from my mother that you haven't been working since you graduated from university. Didn't you graduate from the engineering department? Why don't you find a job? If you don't work, you'll only eat your fill. I heard that you play games every day. Uncle and auntie spent money to send you to university. You've already graduated, but you're still at home. All you do is play games and watch beautiful women stream. Don't you feel ashamed? Ning Shu lectured Luo Jiang with an arrogant look. Luo Jiang's face turned green, but he didn't know what to say. He wanted to refute, but what she said was the truth. Being lectured by a girl like this, Luo Jiang's self-esteem couldn't take it. His face was as ugly as constipation. Now that he had the system, did she really think that he was the Luo Jiang of the past? The Luo Jiang of the past had talent but not opportunity. Now that he had the system, he was a dragon. Luo Jiang swore in his heart that he would make this damn girl hug his leg and cry in the future. Luo Jiang did some mental preparation before saying, you only see that I don't go to work. Actually, I'm also working. This is the era of the internet economy. Work isn't called working from 9 to 5. Ning Shu, you're bragging. Ning Shu didn't give him any face at all. Two words were clearly written on his face, liar. If he was really working, how could he not have any money on him? In the storyline, Luo Jiang stole everything to get Hu Duo. He took Hu Duo everywhere to create all kinds of romance for Hu Duo. He ate high-end food and bought some exquisite jewelry for Hu Duo. These things all cost money. Under the halo and the fact that her childhood sweetheart was so good to her, Hu Duo fell. She was taken advantage of. She was coaxed into confessing that she liked him. She got a good impression of him and then had sex. Because of this, Luo Jiang got a sum of money. 100,000 yuan. He got 100,000 yuan in one go. Anyway, Hu Duo's brain was filled with paste. The things she did didn't go through her brain at all. Ning Shu's scornful expression stung Luo Jiang's eyes. She worshipped the strong and stepped on the weak. This hypocritical woman looked down on him and his family. Luo Jiang clenched his fists. A wave of hostility came out from his heart. Fuck, he really wanted to rape this woman. Look at how cocky she was. Even after being raped, she could still be so cocky. Women nowadays were really realistic. Hu Duo wasn't like this when she was young. Ning Shu looked at Luo Jiang's twisted face. He was always sensitive to others looking down on him. He didn't even look at what was worthy of others looking down on him. He even arrogantly asked others to respect him. If others didn't respect him, this person would be bad in all kinds of ways. Ning Shu turned the key and opened the door. Luo Jiang thickened his face and wanted to go in. What are you doing? Are you going to teach me calculus? Ning Shu asked. Luo Jiang's body froze. Ning Shu closed the door. Calculus? He probably forgot all the things he learned in university. He probably forgot most of his food knowledge. Luo Jiang was once again rejected outside the door. He was speechless. He turned around and went back to his house. He slammed the door so hard that the wall shook twice. That Hu Duo is really stubborn. Why didn't I know that this wretched girl had such a stubborn personality? Luo Jiang complained to the system. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Luo Jiang felt that if he couldn't even handle a pretty girl from a humble family, how could he talk about rich young ladies and all kinds of women in the future? Can I spend money to sleep with a pretty girl? Luo Jiang pushed the system and asked. The system's voice was cold and arrogant. No. At the very least, you have to make the pretty girl have a good impression of you. When the conditions are right, success will follow naturally. Only then will you be charming. The reward for being intimate with a pretty girl for the first time is the highest. After that, the reward will gradually decrease. Then you have to find a new target. Luo Jiang nodded. He would get tired of being intimate with a girl. Why does Hu Duo have such an attitude towards me? Luo Jiang was puzzled. In the past, they always held hands when they went to and from school. I can only say that you have no charm in her heart. You are far away and near you are smelly. Choose a new target. Don't waste time on her. The system said coldly. Changing targets. The problem was that there was no one for him to choose now. It was a former female classmate. After graduating from university, they went their separate ways. It was very difficult to meet them. Moreover, they might even be a little fatty who failed the exam. Luo Jiang thought about it again and again. Hu Duo from the opposite school was the best candidate. Chapter 1239. Hu Duo's appearance passed the mark, and she lived across from him, so he could save on the bus fare. He could meet her at any time. Moreover, Hu Duo humiliated him like that before. He would definitely take her down, and when he got her, he would abandon her and make her suffer. If she wasn't so mean, he might not have abandoned her. Luo Jiang said firmly to the system, I want to conquer Hu Duo. There's no monster that I can't destroy. Then you better hurry up. The first mission has a time limit. You have to push her down within 2 months. After 2 months, the mission will fail. The system was cold and heartless. Since you want to pick up girls, then clean yourself up. When a woman looks at a man, she wants looks, figure, and money. You don't fit any of them. Luo Jiang couldn't help but grumble. He wasn't that bad. Then what about a man looking at a woman? Luo Jiang asked. Beautiful, very beautiful, very beautiful. A woman only needs to be beautiful. The system said. Men would tolerate beautiful women. When a beautiful woman was angry and worked hard, the man would only say helplessly, you annoying little demon. If she wasn't so beautiful and worked hard when angry, the man would say, ugly, eat dynamite. It's still more comfortable to be a woman. Luo Jiang sighed. I only need to be responsible for being beautiful. As a man, I still have to work hard for them. I can turn you into a woman. Are you willing? The system said coldly. No, please don't. I'm just saying. Luo Jiang quickly said, afraid that the system would really turn him into a woman. Luo Jiang was full of energy. Calculus, right? Luo Jiang rummaged through the cupboard to find his university notebook and give it to Hu Duo. From now on, no matter how Hu Duo mocked him, he wouldn't be angry. It was all for the reward. Luo Jiang rummaged through the notebook. However, he had already graduated for more than 2 years. How could he still have a notebook? He didn't know if it was sold as waste paper. Seriously, he had to use calculus to pick up girls. Luo Jiang rummaged through the house and finally found the notebook. However, it was piled in the cupboard. There was a damp smell, and the paper was yellowed. There were even worms. Luo Jiang shook the book and placed it on the balcony to dry in the sun. He also took a creative approach and picked the flowers planted on the balcony. He tied 2 or 3 flowers together and placed them on the yellowed notebook. It gave off a refreshing feeling. The next morning, after Hu Duo's parents went to work, Luo Jiang cleaned himself up, shaved his beard, brushed his teeth, and rinsed his mouth. After tidying up, she took her laptop and went out. She put the laptop behind her and was about to knock on the door when the door suddenly opened. Ning Shu saw Luo Jiang at the door. She was planning to go to the park to see if there were any insects that could be used as voodoo that got into the jar. When he opened the door, he saw Luo Jiang. What? Ning Shu asked. She still had to go to school tomorrow. She had to get the goo back today. Luo Jiang almost couldn't control himself from rolling his eyes. This woman was really not cute at all. Fortunately, Luo Jiang had already seen her sarcasm, so he held back and took out a notebook from behind him. This is my notebook. Inside are my notes. It might be useful for you to learn calculus. Ning Shu looked at the yellowed notebook. There were 3 flowers of different colors on it. It was obvious that she had put in a lot of effort. If it was just a yellowed notebook with bug eyes, it would really make people feel that it was too shabby. Effort was effort, but there was a lot of malice hidden behind it. Why not tease? Straight to the point. Moreover, one side was still very clear-headed. She was thinking about what kind of equipment could be dropped after killing this monster. Gold coins, or second growth medicine. Here, take it. Luo Jiang stared at Ning Shu and said. Ning Shu tilted her head and looked at the notebook. Your notebook. I remember that you failed several courses in university. Is your notebook still usable? Your notebook will probably lead me into a ditch. Ning Shu said without any trace of politeness. Luo Jiang's face immediately turned ugly. He was so lucky to have taken out his notebook and put in so much effort to draw flowers. However, he was fucking rejected. Should he throw a pile of money in front of him? In order to avoid further embarrassment, and also for his own self-esteem, Luo Jiang directly tore up his own notebook, tearing it into pieces of waste paper in the aisle. He stepped on the flowers again and again. Since you don't want it, then this notebook has no value. What's the use of keeping something that has no value? Ning Shu looked coldly at Luo Jiang, who had flown into a rage out of humiliation. The current Luo Jiang was like a dog biting its own tail. Sensitive, irritable, childish, and incompetent. He had nothing, yet he still insisted. He felt that he was the boss and he was the second. Ning Shu locked the door and walked in front of Luo Jiang. He turned his head and looked at the paper on the ground. Clean up the passage. It's so dirty. Luo Jiang's face was like a palette, colorful. Ning Shu did not say anything. He turned around and walked away, leaving behind the angry Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang grabbed the paper on the ground and tore it into pieces. Ning Shu just smiled. Don't even think about earning a single cent from her, let alone kissing her, touching her thigh, and then doing that. Ning Shu went to a hidden place in the park and opened the jar. Inside the jar, there was a centipede, a toad, a small snake, and a lot of spiders. Oh my, this park was quite dangerous. These things were motionless inside the jar. They probably ate the earthworms that Ning Shu mixed with the powder. Now, there was no movement. Ning Shu picked up the jar and covered it with a lid. He put it in his bag and then planned to go home. When he walked to the door, he saw that the paper on the ground had not been cleaned up. Ning Shu was too lazy to care about it. He directly opened the door and then closed the door. Luo Jiang, who was looking at Ning Shu through the peephole, held his breath. He had never seen such a hateful woman. She was not cute at all. Luo Jiang's heart was filled with anger. He felt that this wretched girl was like a curled-up hedgehog. He did not know what to do. Rough? Gentle? Neither friendly nor distant. Loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Damn it, he did such a romantic thing, but the other party laughed at him for failing the exam. It was a completely different style. Luo Jiang scratched his head. Ning Shu returned to his room and locked the door. He took out the jar and poured some into it. It was about to go crazy. The things in the jar gradually moved. They felt that the other creatures in the jar were immediately on alert and formed a triangle. They stared at each other like tigers watching their prey. The atmosphere was tense, and a fight to the death could break out at any time. Ning Shu released the few strands of spirit qi that he had cultivated for the past few days into the jar. The little things in the jar became restless. Ning Shu closed the lid and then placed the jar under the bed. However, there was still some movement in the jar. Chapter 1240. Ning Shu put the jar in the wardrobe. That way, it would be quieter. If Mother Hu was cleaning up, she would sweep the jar out from under the bed. If she opened it, there would be snakes, toads, and all kinds of insect corpses. She would probably think that her daughter was crazy. During dinner, Mother Hu complained, "I don't know who left so many shredded papers in the hallway. It must be a child." Ning Shu drank a mouthful of soup. Child? Luo Jiang, who was already 27 or 28 years old, was not a child. However, to some extent, he was a giant. He did not have the ability to survive. He drank his parents' blood. He did not have any source of income, and his self-esteem was off the charts. Ning Shu said obediently, "It was Luo Jiang who gave me a calculus notebook. I didn't want it, so he got angry and tore it up." Father Hu immediately said, "Don't associate with this kind of person. To put it nicely, he is young and impetuous. To put it bluntly, he is childish and immature. He is a little tramp. He might do something to you. Old Luo's salary is not enough for you to stay at home after graduating from university." Father Hu looked at Ning Shu. "You are a girl. Don't associate with that kind of person. Although men and women are equal and society is open, what is open is thinking. Thinking is not open in every aspect. If there is an accident, you are the one who will be hurt. Girls need to learn to protect themselves. Keeping one's body clean had nothing to do with being conservative. It was not about suppressing men in that aspect. Even if something happened, one had to treat it calmly. Biological structure determined that the one who would be hurt was the girl." Ning Shu nodded obediently. "I know, Dad. In the novel, Hu Duo was pregnant. In the end, she fell down the stairs in the hallway and had a miscarriage. Oh my God, that was blood flowing out of her body. The one who was in pain was Hu Duo." Luo Jiang just apologized by the bed. Ning Shu served a bowl of rice for Father Hu and Mother Hu. Ning Shu took 2 days off because of the cold. The next day, he went to school early in the morning. Hu Duo's university was not far away. It was difficult to get into this university. In order to go home every day, Hu Duo stayed up late to study. It was not easy for her to get into this university. However, he only studied for 2 years before quitting school. She got pregnant out of wedlock and even had a miscarriage. Her boyfriend was a playboy. He would rather die than get married. Life was a tragedy in capital letters. Although Hu Duo knew it herself sometimes, she didn't know why, but when she saw Luo Jiang, she became retarded. She had no complaints or regrets. Ning Shu wondered if all the women who had sex with Luo Jiang were dead set on Luo Jiang. Ning Shu wiped his face and was speechless. If one's spiritual power was too weak, they would be easily affected and fall under the halo. Ning Shu went downstairs to the bike shed to get the bicycle. In the end, he saw Luo Jiang driving the bicycle. He was wearing a white shirt and looked like a clean boy from afar. Ning Shu, you're really haunting me. Ning Shu walked into the car shed, took out the car keys and started the car. Luo Jiang, Ning Shu said, Hu Duo, I'll send you to school. Ning Shu straightforwardly refused, I don't want to. I can ride my own bike. I don't need you to send me. If you have so much free time to send me to school, you might as well write a resume and send it out to find a job. Your family relies on your father to support the family. Your mother is weak and doesn't know how to share the burden of the family. Ning Shu said without any trace of politeness. In any case, he would poke where it hurts. Luo Jiang had a strong self-esteem. He couldn't stand other people scolding and lecturing. When Luo Jiang heard Ning Shu's words, his face immediately turned ugly. However, he endured it. Ning Shu pushed the bicycle and was about to leave. Luo Jiang reached out his hand and pulled Ning Shu's bicycle back seat. What? Ning Shu looked at Luo Jiang with an expressionless face. Luo Jiang said helplessly, Duo brat, why are you rejecting me so much now? Am I? Ning Shu said while pushing the bicycle with all his strength. Luo Jiang tightly held on to the back seat. Ning Shu suddenly pushed the bicycle back heavily. Then, the bicycle's back seat and wheels hit Luo Jiang's thigh and lower abdomen. Luo Jiang couldn't react in time and was hit in a critical area. He immediately cried out in pain. He clamped his legs and covered his lower part. Ah, what's wrong with you? Ning Shu asked helplessly. He threw the bicycle, and the bicycle once again smashed towards Luo Jiang. The bicycle fell on Luo Jiang's back. Luo Jiang cried out in pain again. Ning Shu quickly went to help Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang quickly reached out his hand and grabbed Ning Shu's hand, don't come over. Luo Jiang was in so much pain that his body was trembling. Ning Shu had an apologetic and guilty face, are you okay? Why don't we go to the hospital? I'm okay. Luo Jiang's neck was red from holding back his breath. Motherfucker, I'm about to be crippled. Hurry up and stop the pain. Luo Jiang roared in his heart. Soon, there was a cool feeling going towards Luo Jiang's lower part. It gradually relieved the pain that was going to make him go into shock. Are you really okay? Ning Shu asked again. Luo Jiang, who was bent over, stood up straight. His face was not as pale as before. It seemed like he was not enduring the pain anymore. I'm really okay. Ning Shu, this is also fine. Ning Shu advised, I know that part of a man is weak. You don't have to endure it. Let's go to the hospital. Luo Jiang shook his head, I'm really okay. Ning Shu let out a sigh of relief, it's good that you're okay. Ning Shu picked up the bicycle and rode away. Ning Shu was really puzzled. Luo Jiang's lower part was already like an iron bastion. How could he be okay? At the beginning, Luo Jiang was in so much pain that his eyes rolled back. However, not long after, Luo Jiang no longer felt pain. It was probably because of the help of the system. Oh my, that system was really kind. Luo Jiang stared at Ning Shu's back. His eyes were red. Although he did not feel much pain, his lower part was burning hot. He felt that his balls were swollen. Luo Jiang hurried back home and washed himself with cold water. He thought that with the system, he would have a lot of luck with women. In the end, before he could even touch the water, he was beaten to death on the beach by the girl next door who only passed. "Can you help me reduce the swelling?" Luo Jiang asked the system. When he touched it, it was incomparably hot. It was as if a heating pad was placed between his legs. Moreover, it was swollen. Although it did not hurt, he still felt that his balls were hurting. "Will this affect my ability?" Luo Jiang shouted as if he was about to collapse. Then what could he use to conquer a beauty? "This matter is to give you a warning," the system said coldly. Luo Jiang scratched his head. Is it so hard to pick up girls? Luo Jiang's confidence was now a bit damaged. A girl who only passed was already so hard to get. Those high and mighty beauties would be even harder to get. This game was so hard. Everyone's mental strength is different. Some people are strong, some people are weak. I have already helped you a lot. The women who stay with you, they all look at you through a high-powered fan filter. They will automatically filter out your shortcomings and shortcomings. Chapter 1241. High-frequency fan filter. Automatically filtering out flaws and inadequacies. Luo Jiang didn't believe it. Why was it that when he was with that brat Hu Duo, that brat would say nasty things and pick things he didn't like to hear? Hu Duo, does Hu Duo look like a brainless fan when she looks at me? Which family's brainless fan is so mean? Luo Jiang said speechlessly. It was fine if she was mean, but she even purposely bumped into him, even though the other party sincerely apologized. Luo Jiang still felt that the other party did it on purpose. I already said that the degree of influence is related to the person's spiritual power. Your green plum's spiritual power is probably stronger than the average person's. The system's voice was cold. Luo Jiang scratched his head and then washed his balls with cold water. He felt that his balls were numb. It was swollen. Ning Shu rode his bicycle to school and went to class. Because he was delayed by Luo Jiang, Ning Shu was already late. He bent over and quietly entered the classroom. The original owner's major was foreign languages. This foreign language was a bit complicated as it was several languages. Fortunately, Ning Shu's memory was quite good now. The roots of the words were all small things. The foreign language major was also quite good. In the future, he wouldn't need to translate when he went abroad. Whether it was a formal job or a part-time job, it was a good job. Ning Shu felt very relaxed to be able to sit in class. At least he didn't have to fight and kill. It was a very peaceful world. After all the classes were finished, Ning Shu rode home. On the road of the school, he saw students holding books in 2s and 3s. There were also couples. Youth was beautiful. Ning Shu felt that he had become younger. The ivory tower was really a beautiful place. Ning Shu returned home and took out a jar from the closet. Ning Shu leaned close to the jar and listened. There was movement inside. Ning Shu opened the lid and then rolled his eyes. The last one to survive was a toad, but this toad didn't form a goo. Although he didn't know why it survived to the end, it wasn't a goo. It seemed that the success rate of making a goo in this world was very low. Then he had to think of another way. Ning Shu opened the drawer and took out a silver needle that shone with a faint light. He could only turn Luo Jiang's thing into an ornament. Other than peeing, it had no other function. However, everything was still there. Even if there was a problem, the push-down system would help Luo Jiang repair it. His balls hurt so much, but it only hurt for a moment and then it didn't hurt anymore. Ning Shu was convinced by this system. Would the system help Luo Jiang grow a new one if he lost his dick? Could it be reconnected? It all depended on whether the system was willing to spend so much on Luo Jiang. On the other side, Luo Jiang decided to go to the hospital to reduce the swelling and inflammation. After sleeping for a night, his balls were even more swollen, which scared Luo Jiang to death. Although he didn't feel any pain and felt numb, this feeling was even more frightening. Luo Jiang arrived at the hospital and took off his pants to show the doctor his symptoms. It was originally an andrology department, but in the end, there was a beautiful doctor. A female doctor in the andrology department was even more strange, and it was a beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor, who was used to seeing big scenes, blushed when she saw Luo Jiang's little brother. When Luo Jiang heard the system say that this beautiful doctor was a beauty who almost scored 80 points, he immediately became happy. He could see a beauty for 80 minutes just by coming to see a doctor. Luo Jiang stared at the beautiful doctor with a burning gaze. The beautiful doctor was a little embarrassed. After hurriedly looking at the symptoms, the beautiful doctor asked the nurse to bring him to get medicine and 4 drip. The nurse was also a beautiful woman, and a beautiful woman who was as gentle as water. Luo Jiang felt his whole body ripple. Why didn't he meet such a beauty before? The nurse inserted a needle into Luo Jiang's body, but she accidentally poked the wrong one. Luo Jiang's expression didn't change, and he even comforted the beautiful nurse, telling her to poke him again if it was okay. Luo Jiang kept talking to the beautiful nurse, and sometimes he asked if his little brother could be saved. He didn't know if it could stand up in the future, and if it couldn't, then he wouldn't have a happy sex life for the rest of his life. Facing Luo Jiang's teasing, the beautiful nurse's face kept blushing, and she was a little shy. She comforted Luo Jiang that it wouldn't happen, and it would be fine as long as the swelling was reduced. Only then did Luo Jiang confirm that he was charming. The beautiful nurse kept busily inserting needles and 4 drip for other patients. Luo Jiang's gaze kept wandering around the beautiful nurse's body, especially some sensitive places, such as her breasts and buttocks. The beautiful nurse's face turned red. Although she was embarrassed, she didn't get angry. This person looked at her openly, and there was admiration in his eyes. He wasn't like other men, who were sneaky, and their gazes were disgusting. The beautiful nurse only glared at Luo Jiang. This glare really didn't have any deterrent power. Instead, it was charming and very seductive. It made Luo Jiang laugh foolishly. This was the effect of the fan filter. For the same thing, Luo Jiang was open and honest, while other people were vulgar and disgusting. Moreover, it was a woman who automatically explained for Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang swore that he would definitely get the beautiful doctor and nurse. These 2 people's personalities and appearances were better than the little girl next door. He would get these 2 first, and then he would get the girl next door. He must get Hu Duo, or else it would be a failure and imperfection in his life. Luo Jiang wouldn't allow himself to have such a regret on his path to picking girls. If he couldn't even get an ugly person, it would be an insult to his charm. Luo Jiang talked to the beautiful nurse while he was on an 4 drip. After a while, he said that his body was very uncomfortable and asked the nurse to call the doctor over. He deliberately approached the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor knew what Luo Jiang was thinking, but she didn't get angry. Instead, she seriously asked where he was feeling uncomfortable. Luo Jiang covered his chest and said that his heart ached. Seeing you so nervous makes my heart ache. For the first time, Luo Jiang wished that his illness wouldn't heal so quickly and that his balls would be wronged. Although his balls were swollen, he met 2 top-notch beauties. It was worth it. Under the system's prompt, the beautiful doctor and nurse had a certain favorable impression of Luo Jiang. This favorable impression was a bit more than ordinary people, but it wasn't to the point of being boyfriend and girlfriend, and it wasn't to the point of having sex. Luo Jiang was already very satisfied. After all, it was the first time they met. He didn't want the damn girl next door to have a half-dead attitude towards him. The system couldn't detect any favorable impression of him. Luo Jiang guessed that the girl hated him in her heart, so it couldn't detect any favorable impression. The beautiful doctor said that she would let Luo Jiang have an 4 drip for a week, which made Luo Jiang's heart jump with joy. In a week, there would definitely be a qualitative leap. Even if they couldn't have sex, there would still be some intimate actions. Acting like a shrew would always gain some advantages. Luo Jiang seemed to see money rolling down from the sky, and many, many beautiful girls running towards him. Life was like this, what more could he ask for? Chapter 1242. Ning Shu, who failed to make the gu, had to think of other ways to deal with Luo Jiang. Ning Shu really wanted to chop off Luo Jiang's right and wrong route. Without right and wrong route, let's see how you can reach the peak of your life. But if she did it directly, she wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Moreover, the original host was a university student with a bright future. She couldn't go to jail for intentional injury. Unless she had no other choice, she wouldn't ruin her future for a scumbag. So she had to think of a way that wouldn't involve herself. The original host still had to go to university, work, and be filial to her parents. The purpose of counterattack was to live a happy life. If she used poison, she didn't know if the other party's system would detect it. If it detected it, she would be exposed. Ning Shu wanted to use silver needles, but she felt that the system would fix it. Instead, it would alert the enemy. Ning Shu was afraid of the system that could push her down. Once a system had chosen a host, it would not give up easily. If the host was really a pile of mud that could not be supported, it would not give up easily. The system would abandon him and look for a new host. Seeing that the other party's system was so good, Ning Shu thought of the sleeping 233. But one day, 233 suddenly treated her very well. He gave her whatever she wanted, and when she was doing missions, he took care of her. Ning Shu's hair stood on end. Between 233 and her, there was no such thing as pleasing each other. Without a mission user, the system was useless. Mission users who weren't assigned a system weren't regular mission users. If 233 suddenly changed and did everything for her, then 233 definitely had a conspiracy. Ning Shu heard the sound of the opposite door opening. She looked through the peephole and saw Luo Jiang with a face full of tears. Seeing Luo Jiang like this, he probably met a beautiful woman. In the next few days, Ning Shu saw that Luo Jiang didn't come to harass her. Every day, he would go out early in the morning and only come back at night. He had a wretched appearance. Where did he go? If Luo Jiang really seduced a beautiful woman, he would reward her. Then Luo Jiang would use these resources to pick up girls. It was really a case of taking from the people and using for the people. Ning Shu planned to follow him and take a look. In the morning, Luo Jiang went out with Ning Shu following behind him. Luo Jiang left the neighborhood. First, he went to the street to buy 2 bags of fruits. Then, he bought 2 bouquets of flowers, one of roses and one of tulips. The 2 bouquets were exquisitely packaged, and the flowers were lush and very fresh. There were quite a number of flowers, and a bouquet of flowers did not look cheap. Ning Shu, 2 bunches, 2 people. The 2 beauties couldn't possibly have 2 bouquets each. I'll go. In just a few days, Luo Jiang was so efficient. Where did the unemployed Luo Jiang get the money? Ning Shu had reason to believe that he must have taken out his parents' coffin money to pick up girls. In Luo Jiang's words, it was an investment. Once he got the girl, he would get 10 times the return. Ning Shu took the lead to hail a taxi and got in. Luo Jiang, who was carrying 2 bouquets of flowers and fruits, certainly wouldn't squeeze into the bus. Sure enough, Luo Jiang stood by the roadside and hailed a taxi. Ning Shu's taxi driver said, "Follow the car in front." Soon, they arrived at the hospital. Luo Jiang carried the 2 bouquets of flowers and entered the andrology department. Ning Shu followed behind Luo Jiang. He saw Luo Jiang enter the office and handed a bouquet of roses to a beautiful doctor wearing a white coat. The beautiful doctor did not intend to accept it. She tactfully refused and said that it was not good. Luo Jiang still gave the flowers to the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor hugged the roses and smelled them. Her face revealed a smile. Luo Jiang put the fruits on the table and carried the tulips to the infusion room. He gave the tulips to a nurse. Ning Shu, this was really, Luo Jiang met both a beautiful doctor and a beautiful nurse. The beautiful nurse did not want to accept the flowers. She refused for a while and accepted it. Then, she gave Luo Jiang an injection. Luo Jiang kept asking the beautiful nurse if there was any problem with his future sexual life. The beautiful nurse blushed and said that there was no problem. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. It would be better if he was crippled. Because of her bump, Luo Jiang had the opportunity to meet these two beauties. However, Luo Jiang was just going to eat a meal. The waitresses were all beauties. Even if it was a small eatery that couldn't be any smaller, the lady boss was still a beautiful wife. However, Luo Jiang was really ambitious. The two of them were together and each of them had a bouquet of flowers. Did he want to have a threesome and send her to heaven? Ning Shu looked at the two beauties. They were not dead set on Luo Jiang. At the last step, at most, they had a little good impression of him. It was probably just that their hearts were a little restless. However, was this normal? The doctor and the nurse flirted together. Under normal circumstances, the doctor and the nurse would give Luo Jiang a few slaps. There were so many female doctors and nurses in the hospital. He just picked the two most beautiful ones to flirt with. Luo Jiang was ambitious, but the women under the halo of a stallion were even more ambitious. Ning Shu could not help but sigh. He turned around and left. Why was it only his balls that were swollen? Why didn't his balls fall off? Looking at the attitude of the two beauties, Ning Shu understood the situation of the original Hu duo even more. Their eyes were covered with shit. Even if they saw the situation, they would automatically defend Luo Jiang. They did not need Luo Jiang to say anything and would forgive the other party. Luo Jiang was really Ning Shu. He felt that his stomach was a little uncomfortable. Luo Jiang was the same as those people from the yin-yang sect who used yin to supplement yang. He deceived his heart and body, and his life was delayed. After flirting with the beauties and receiving rewards, he would look for a new target. Because the reward for the first flirting was the highest, the rewards after that were not so attractive. Ning Shu left the hospital. He walked while thinking of a way. If he did not cripple Luo Jiang, he would start from these beauties. However, he could not shake the body of a beauty whenever he met one. Dear, wake up. That Luo Jiang is a fucking scumbag. You can't be with him. You can't do that with him. Let's not talk about whether the beauties under the halo could wake up or not. Moreover, Luo Jiang's beauties could circle the earth several times while holding hands. There were all kinds of beauties, all kinds of skin colors, and all kinds of social classes. It was really a huge project. Just thinking about it made his scalp numb. Therefore, he still had to deal with the source. Deal with Luo Jiang, deal with the system that pushed down the beauties. The best way was to cut off Luo Jiang's root. He had harmed countless beauties with a single stick. Looking at it this way, sometimes, being ugly was also a kind of luck. He had to use a suitable method to deal with Luo Jiang in one hit. What method should he use? What method should he use? Ning Shu really could not think of a suitable method that would not implicate himself and at the same time cripple Luo Jiang. Ning Shu said Amitba in his heart. Why did she like crippling men's lower part more and more? This was a bad habit, but Ning Shu did not repent. Chapter 1243. Ning Shu went to school for the time being. She did not think of a suitable way, so she could only bide her time. When Luo Jiang felt that she could succeed, she would make a move and let the other party fall from heaven to hell. Now Ning Shu still did not know what function the system had. Would it have an instant healing ability? After the class, Ning Shu rode his bicycle and saw stray dogs on the roadside. These stray dogs were covered in blood lice. They were so densely packed that it gave people goosebumps. The stray dogs were rummaging through the garbage cans in the park. They were skinny, and their abdomens were full of bones. Ning Shu stopped the bike, took out the bread from his backpack and threw it to these dogs. With something to eat, several dogs rushed up and even bit each other. In the end, a small dog held the bread in its mouth. Although half of it was taken by other dogs, it ate the most. Ning Shu got off the bike, stared at the dog, and tried to communicate with it. Little thing. The dog barked at Ning Shu. There was fear in its voice, but also a hint of joy. Many people did not like this stray dog. They were dirty and spread diseases. Ning Shu looked at the stray dog, squinted his eyes, and suddenly laughed. However, Ning Shu didn't stay for long and left on her bike. However, every time he passed by the park, Ning Shu would sit on the park bench and eat. He would throw the unfinished food to the dog. The dog seemed to know Ning Shu. Every time it saw Ning Shu, it knew that there was food and followed him. Ning Shu tried to communicate with one of the dogs. It was a very simple communication. Dogs were also considered intelligent creatures. Ning Shu communicated with the dog while paying attention to Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang now treated the hospital as his home. He would go to the hospital whenever he had nothing to do. Every time he went to the hospital, he would do something. If it was not flowers, it was chocolate. Or it was exquisite necklaces and earrings. Every time Ning Shu saw Luo Jiang buy something, he could not help but twitch his mouth. He really spent money like water. No wonder the system would reward him with cash. Normal people wouldn't be able to withstand Luo Jiang's spending. However, Luo Jiang was also vexed in his heart. Right now, the progress was really not that great. He had spent a lot of effort every day. He did not know if it was because of a woman's reservedness or some other reason. The beautiful doctors and nurses, none of them confessed to him, let alone let him kiss them. He was still not at the right level. The system said that the favorable impression had stopped. Luo Jiang couldn't figure out what the problem was. Could it be that he needed some stimulation? Luo Jiang wanted to find some hooligans and rob them of their money and body, and then he would be the hero to save the beauty. But the problem was, what if he went too far? When the hooligans saw a beauty, they didn't care about anything else. Moreover, with his current body, it would be difficult for him to defeat the hooligans. Fuck, this game is so fucked up. Until now, he still hadn't found anything. God, please give me a chance to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. However, the opportunity came quickly. It was a beautiful nurse. The beautiful nurse sprained her ankle when she got off work at night. Luo Jiang ran over excitedly and gave her a princess hug. Then, he clumsily helped the beautiful nurse spit out the medicinal oil. The beauty was originally a nurse, so she didn't need Luo Jiang to wipe her. However, the beauty suddenly felt touched. After applying the medicine, Luo Jiang wanted to send the beautiful nurse home. He directly carried her to the bus stop. When the bus arrived, Luo Jiang directly carried the beautiful nurse onto the bus. Being stared at by a bus full of people, the beautiful nurse was so embarrassed that she buried her face in Luo Han's chest. Luo Jiang carefully put the beautiful nurse on the seat. When the bus arrived, Luo Jiang carried the beautiful nurse off the bus. He went straight to the beautiful nurse's house. This was the first time Luo Jiang went to a woman's house. Especially when the beautiful nurse lived alone. Luo Jiang couldn't help but rub his hands. He secretly felt that something was going to happen. When he saw the underwear hanging on the balcony, Luo Jiang felt hot all over. He turned his head and didn't look. However, the corner of his eyes kept glancing at the balcony. The cup size was so big. The underwear was black lace. Luo Zhang's nose itched. He felt like he was going to have a nosebleed. The gentle and beautiful nurse was also quite coquettish. The beautiful nurse felt that it was inappropriate. She limped to the balcony to put away the underwear. She sprained her ankle and couldn't walk. Luo Jiang volunteered to help her put away the clothes. Luo Jiang almost couldn't control himself. He wanted to put the clothes to the tip of his nose and smell them. He wanted to bury his face in the underwear. However, Luo Jiang restrained himself. When the beautiful nurse saw that her clothes were in the hands of a man, she felt very embarrassed. The atmosphere became hot. It was ambiguous and awkward. When the two people's eyes met, they immediately looked away. The two people's heartbeats were very fast. Their hearts were thumping against their chests. In the end, Luo Jiang took the initiative. He asked the beautiful nurse if she was hungry. He wanted to buy something to eat. The beautiful nurse directly said that she wanted to sleep. What she meant was that she wanted Luo Jiang to leave quickly. Luo Jiang saw that it wasn't the time to do that. After all, success wouldn't come naturally. Luo Jiang could only get up and leave. When he walked out of the door, he cursed in his heart. As long as he slept with her, it would be fine. What was the point of talking about love? It was so troublesome. Idiot. Love is a kind of belief. Love is also a kind of power. If you want a lot of belief to be concentrated on you, it will be good for you. The system said coldly. Love is wholehearted. There is only one person in your heart. Many women have you in their hearts. They will give you the belief of love. Luo Jiang couldn't stand the system's attitude towards him. Previously, when he suddenly obtained the system, he was very careful. He felt like he was dreaming. However, after a long time, when he was sure that he had obtained the system, Luo Jiang started to feel angry at the system that was always pointing fingers at him. Luo Jiang was a person who couldn't tolerate other people pointing fingers at him. His ego was very strong. He was angry at the system for calling him an idiot. I am an idiot. I am the one who is picking up girls, not you. Be careful or I will quit. It was just a system. Did it want to go to heaven? The system was silent for a moment. Is what you said true? I can leave you. Luo Jiang immediately became speechless. I am just saying. The system was the only thing that could change Luo Jiang's life. In this day and age, money was hard to earn. He didn't have a rich father and didn't have money to do business. If Luo Jiang worked for someone else, he would be like a grandson in front of his boss. The pitiful money he earned wouldn't even be enough for a month's expenses. Luo Jiang couldn't stand it. Luo Jiang still felt that a career that could earn him money by picking up girls was more suitable for him. He had women and money. He could easily reach the peak of his life. This was his golden finger. What I said is for your own good. You just have to listen to me. Our fates are intertwined. I will only be good if you are good. The system said. Luo Jiang nodded. Whatever you say. Chapter 1244. As soon as Luo Jiang came home and opened the door, a feather duster hit him. Luo Jiang reflexively blocked it with his hand and felt pain in his arm. Luo Jiang was furious. What are you doing? Dad, why did you hit me? Luo Jiang looked at his father angrily. Luo Jiang's father pointed the feather duster at Luo Jiang. Did you take the money? Your mother still needs to take medicine. Without money, what will your mother do? Luo Jiang was a bit impatient. I took it, but I need it urgently. When the time comes, I will earn back 5 times, no, 10 times. You still have reason. Luo Jiang's father picked up the feather duster and hit Luo Jiang. Enough. Luo Jiang was in so much pain that he jumped. He snatched the feather duster from his father's hand and threw it away. What are you doing? I just took some money. I said that I will earn it back. Is it worth it for you to make such a fuss? Luo Jiang was very irritated. It's the mindset of a peasant for the rest of my life. I'll always be so poor, living a tight life. If his father had money, he would have more resources to pick up girls and expand his career. Luo Jiang's father was so angry that he covered his chest and pointed at Luo Jiang. Tell me, where did you take the money? Did you learn bad things? I said, I am doing this for my career. You hit me indiscriminately. Luo Jiang's father was even angrier. His face was pale and he looked even older. Luo Jiang's mother leaned against the door and watched the conflict between father and son. She could only cry silently. I've already said that it's for my career. I'll return the money to you when the time comes. Then tell me, what kind of business is it? You didn't even tell us and you took the money. You still have reason. What kind of business can you do like this? Don't be cheated. Luo Jiang immediately straightened his neck. In your eyes, is your son such a person? Luo Jiang opened the door and stood at the door. Since you look down on me so much, I must do something before coming back. Then get lost. The movement in the hallway alarmed Ning Shu's family. Papa Hu, Mama Hu, and Ning Shu all came out. Ning Shu looked at the stubborn Luo Jiang, who seemed to have suffered an unprecedented injustice, and immediately rolled his eyes. Old Luo, if there's anything, talk to the child nicely, Papa Hu said. Don't be angry. You're old. What if something bad happens when you get angry? Is it your turn to meddle in our family's affairs? Don't think that I don't know that you look down on my father, me, and our family in your hearts, Luo Jiang shouted at Papa Hu with an expression that said he had seen through everything. Papa Hu was speechless. He did not know what to say. Luo Jiang's father sighed. It's nothing much. It's just that the child at home is disobedient. How am I disobedient? Everything I do is for this family. I don't want this family to be so poor. I knew that you guys don't like me and look down on me. Even my dad thinks that I can't make a name for myself. I swear that if I can't make money, I will never step into the house. Luo Jiang angrily shouted. Dong, 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 he ran downstairs. Luo Jiang's words stunned everyone in the corridor. Luo Jiang's father wiped his face. He looked exhausted. Papa Hu did not know what to say. He did not know if he should comfort Luo Jiang's father. Ning Shu's face was cold the whole time. If he faltered now, he would come back to slap his own face when he became rich. Even his own parents would be slapped in the face. Who asked you to not believe me? Who asked you to hurt my heart? You should have trusted me wholeheartedly without asking for any reason. You looked down on your own son, but your son would definitely be able to achieve great things. Ning Shu thought for a moment and knew that Luo Jiang had been caught stealing money from his family. Not only did he not feel that he was wrong, but he also felt wronged. The world revolved around him. If others did not lend him money, it was their fault. He stole his parents' money, but he blamed his own parents. He just took some money and blabbered on, he felt wronged. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Papa Hu comforted Luo Jiang's father, saying that the child was still young and that they should communicate well. It was really awkward, so Papa Hu brought his wife and daughter into the house. Luo Jiang's shout just now was really embarrassing. Papa Hu closed the door and said somewhat angrily, Luo Jiang is really a rascal. He has lived for so long, but he doesn't even know how to speak. Children are really debtors. In the future, it's better not to interfere with their family's affairs. It won't be good for them. Mama Hu said, he's already so old, but he doesn't have a job and doesn't even have a girlfriend. In the future, don't interact with him too much. He's immature and has a very bad temper. Papa Hu said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu said very obediently, I know. I won't have anything to do with him. With Luo Zhang's personality, if he did not have a beautiful woman to push him into the system, he would not have any future in this life. Luo Jiang ran out of his house and walked slowly on the street. The city lights were just starting to turn on. Feeling the cool breeze, Luo Jiang swore that he would make himself rich. Luo Jiang bought a few cans of beer and sat on a bench in the park. He was really fed up with this kind of oppressive life. His parents did not understand, and others looked down on him. He just had to make a career out of it. When the time came, he would look at these people's faces. Luo Jiang threw the beer cans into the trash can. A dog stood up and dug into the trash can. Luo Jiang smiled sarcastically. He picked up an empty can and threw it at the dog. The dog was so scared that it barked twice. It leaned forward, bared its teeth at Luo Jiang, and made a gurgling sound from its throat. Luo Jiang was already in a bad mood. Now, he was being glared at by a dog, a stray dog. If you don't scram, I'll make you into a dog meat hotpot. Scram. Luo Jiang crushed the can and threw it at the dog. If you bark at me again, it's really bad luck. Luo Jiang thought that the dog would definitely run away after being scared by him. He did not expect that this was a mad dog. It actually rushed towards him and bit his trousers. Its teeth even scratched the skin on his leg. Luo Jiang was furious. This mad dog dug into the trash every day and ate garbage. Who knew how much bacteria it had in its mouth? Damn it! What an unlucky year. Luo Jiang unceremoniously kicked the stray dog's body. The stray dog whimpered and whimpered. The stray dog looked at Luo Jiang with its tail between its legs and whimpered. Luo Jiang fiercely said, Scram, or I'll teach you a lesson. The stray dog with its tail between its legs seemed to be afraid of Luo Jiang. However, when Luo Jiang was not paying attention, it suddenly rushed in front of him and bit Luo Jiang's indescribable position. It was almost a fierce bite. Luo Jiang instantly felt that something sharp pierced through his flesh. His mind went blank for a moment. All his senses were down there. It was not just a bite. Luo Jiang was in so much pain that he let out an inhuman cry. The stray dog scurried into the grass and disappeared in an instant. Chapter 1245. Luo Jiang was caught off guard and was bitten by the stray dog. The stray dog bit and pulled, causing Luo Jiang's indescribable private part to become unrecognizable. Luo Jiang covered his private part and screamed. Then, he fell to the ground and covered his private part with his hands. It was dripping with blood. The overwhelming pain made Luo Jiang's consciousness blur, which alarmed the people walking in the park. Soon, someone called the emergency number. Luo Jiang had fainted from the pain and was lying in a pool of blood. Soon, the ambulance came and carried Luo Jiang into the ambulance. Half of Luo Jiang's pants were stained with blood, and there was a strong smell of blood in the air. The ambulance rushed away, and some people were still talking. They pointed at the blood on the ground. Soon, there was a movement in the Luo family opposite the Hu family. Hurried footsteps were heard. Ning Shu listened to the urgent sirens of the ambulance and heard the movements of the Luo family opposite her. He guessed that something had happened to Luo Jiang. Father Hu was a little confused. What happened? I don't know. I don't know what old Luo is doing. Mother Hu said and pushed her husband. You should go and have a look. After all, we have been neighbors for so many years. Father Hu nodded and went to the entrance to change his shoes. Ning Shu went out of the room and said to Mother Hu, let's go and have a look. It was a woman's nature to love gossip. Mother Hu thought about it and went out with Ning Shu. The summer night was cooler. In the park not far from the community, there were groups of people. Mother Hu went over and asked what had happened. She learned that a man was bitten by a stray dog and was now being treated. She exclaimed. When a group of people was together, they had endless topics to talk about. Ning Shu saw that Mother Hu was chatting with people. They went to a fast food restaurant not far away to buy some food and then went to the park. A dog rushed in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu put the fast food like fried chicken legs in his hand on the ground. The stray dog ate the chicken legs without raising its head. Ning Shu said with a smile, "You did a good job." Ning Shu placed his hand on the stray dog's body and injected some spiritual energy into it. "I hope you can live longer. What about you? Hurry up and leave too. We can't stay here any longer," Ning Shu said. With such a thing happening, the stray dogs in the park attacking the citizens would definitely cause panic. Someone would definitely come to deal with these stray dogs. It would probably be humane destruction. Moreover, she could not adopt this dog. The Luo family was just across the street. Luo Jiang was bitten by a dog. If she adopted a dog, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. When he first saw the stray dog, Ning Shu had a plan in his heart. He wanted her to have the ability to communicate with animals. Usually, when he went to the park to feed the dogs, he took out Luo Jiang's photo and emphasized Luo Jiang's indescribable position. Sometimes she would throw a doll to the dog for training. Dogs could achieve this effect through training. However, these stray dogs were quite smart. Ning Shu said that if you meet the person in the photo, don't be polite, especially at night. Recently, Luo Jiang always went home very late. Every day, he would wander around the hospital, trying to get the beautiful doctors and nurses. Other than this method, Ning Shu could not think of any other way for the time being. The stray dog finished all the drumsticks and even chewed the bones. Ning Shu smiled. "You can go. You really can't stay here." The stray dog turned around and left. Ning Shu whimpered when he turned around. Ning Shu waved his hand. "You can't bite people casually in the future," Ning Shu said. If he bit people casually, he would definitely be humanely destroyed. The stray dog took advantage of the night and slipped into the grass and disappeared. Ning Shu returned to Mother Hu's side. Mother Hu was chatting with a group of gossipy women. When she saw Ning Shu, she quickly asked, "Where did you go?" Ning Shu gave her a bottle of water. "I went to buy water. Don't run around. There are mad dogs in this park that will bite people." Mother Hu asked Ning Shu to sit next to her. Ning Shu drank the water and listened to these people talk obediently. The night breeze felt very comfortable on his body. They chatted a little late. Mother Hu pushed Ning Shu, who was about to fall asleep. "Let's go back." "Okay." Ning Shu quickly stood up. When the mother and daughter returned home, Father Hu was already home. What happened to old Luo's family? Father Hu took a sip of tea. Luo Jiang was bitten by a dog. It was a stray dog in the park. He was bitten by a dog. I guess he quarreled with old Luo and ran out. As a result, he was bitten by a dog. So it was Luo Jiang. Mother Hu asked again, "Is it serious?" Ning Shu also pricked up his ears to listen to Luo Jiang's current situation. Father Hu put down the teacup, shook his head and said, "It's a little serious. I heard that a dog's teeth pierced through his skin. That area was bitten until only some flesh was left." "It's that serious?" Mother Hu exclaimed. "That dog is really crazy. Why did it bite him like that?" Luo Jiang still needs surgery to be stitched back together. Father Hu glanced at Ning Shu. "Why aren't you going to sleep?" Ning Shu replied with an "oh" and obediently went to sleep. Obviously, Father Hu didn't want his daughter to hear about this kind of thing. After receiving news about Luo Jiang, Ning Shu went to sleep contentedly. Back in the room, Ning Shu sat on the bed and supported his chin. Luo Jiang had been badly injured. She didn't know if he could recover. Would the push-down system use its energy to repair Luo Jiang's body? It would be best if she could leave this place. If she was willing to spend money, then she still had a battle to fight. She couldn't use the stray dog trick anymore. Some methods could only be used once. For example, being attacked by a stray dog was completely a coincidence. If it happened once, it wouldn't be a coincidence if it happened a second time. Besides, once bitten by a snake, one would be afraid of startling it for 10 years. After being bitten by a dog, Luo Jiang would hide far away when he saw a dog in the future. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. With a strong body, he could do more things. Luo Jiang, who was bitten beyond recognition by a dog, was put on the operating table. Because he was bitten by a stray dog, he had to be disinfected many times. The attending doctor was a beautiful doctor. When the beautiful doctor saw Luo Jiang, she was stunned for a moment. She felt really strange. This person's indescribable part was really easy to get hurt. Last time, it was his testicles that were swollen. This time, it was directly destroyed. The whole operation was done under a microscope. In fact, it was not easy to do. If it was simply sealed, it could be sewn up directly with a needle. However, the function of this thing had to be considered. The blood vessels had to be sewn together. In short, it was a very delicate job. Even if it was sewn up, there might be various obstacles in the future. After all, it couldn't be compared to the original one. Chapter 1246. Luo Jiang's surgery took a whole day to complete. As for the effect of the surgery, no one could guarantee it. When Luo Jiang woke up, his whole body was numb. He suddenly thought of his little brother and struggled to get up. As a result, he pulled down. "Hey, you should sleep first. Don't move around. You just had surgery." The beautiful doctor pressed down on Luo Jiang's body. "It will affect your wound." When Luo Jiang saw the beautiful doctor, he was embarrassed. Why did he always meet this beauty every time something happened to his lower body? Especially when his lower body was bitten by a dog. Luo Jiang anxiously asked the beautiful doctor, "Is my lower body really okay?" The beautiful doctor hesitated for a moment. Luo Jiang's face became pale. "Is there a problem?" Luo Jiang had a bad premonition in his heart. Thinking back to that time, the dog almost pulled his lower body off. It kept biting and pulling. It's hard to say now. It depends on the recovery effect of the surgery. However, you were sent here in time. There shouldn't be any effect. You just need to take care of your body. The beautiful doctor said ambiguously. Luo Jiang breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking that there was a beautiful woman in front of him, the sickness of flirting with girls flared up again. "Thank you. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how I would be now. In the future, I will have to trouble you more. Speaking of which, it's also embarrassing." Luo Jiang's soft and pitiful appearance was the easiest to evoke a woman's maternal sympathy. The beautiful doctor immediately said, "Don't worry. As long as you take care of your wound, there will be no problem." Luo Jiang's face was pale. He looked at the beautiful doctor helplessly and smiled. A man's weak and melancholic appearance was the best way for a woman to relax. The beautiful nurse took out a syringe and prepared to give Luo Jiang an injection. "You were bitten by a dog. Stray dogs carry a lot of viruses, so now we need to give you a tetanus shot and rabies vaccine," the beautiful doctor said. Luo Jiang looked at the sharp needle dripping with medicine. He was so angry that he wanted to chop the dog that bit him into pieces. Damn dog. When the beautiful doctor was giving Luo Jiang an injection, Luo Jiang's father came in. Luo Zhang's father looked at Luo Jiang, who was lying on the hospital bed. How could you be bitten by a dog? If you didn't run out in anger, you wouldn't have been bitten by a dog. Do you know that after you had the surgery and were hospitalized, the house was emptied? Luo Zhang's father was angry and distressed. And you were bitten by a dog there. Money, money, money. You only know about money. If you believed me back then, I wouldn't have left home. I did it for my career, but you didn't believe me. I'm your son, but you didn't believe me. Luo Jiang felt that if he didn't have a conflict with his father, if his father didn't believe him, he wouldn't have run out of the house, wouldn't have met the dog, and wouldn't have been bitten by the dog. Luo Jiang's father was so angry that he wanted to die. However, when he thought about how his son was still lying on the hospital bed, he said, "When you recover, you should find a good job. Do you know that your uncle who helped pay for the surgery fees? Who Duo's father? I didn't ask him for help. Who wants his charity? I will return it to him in the future." Luo Jiang straightened his neck and said. Because he had just undergone surgery and had lost a lot of blood, his face was as white as snow. Luo Jiang's father was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. What was wrong with his son? "Dad, I will definitely earn a lot of money back." Every time he heard his son say that he wanted to earn money for his career, he couldn't come up with a plan. He also didn't know what he wanted to do. Luo Jiang's father felt that his son had been staying at home for too long and that there was something wrong with his brain. The beautiful nurse at the side couldn't stand it anymore. The patient has just undergone surgery. He can't be too emotional. Family members shouldn't provoke the patient too much. Luo Jiang's father ran left and right for most of the night. He registered and waited in front of the operating room. His son still had this attitude when he woke up. It made Luo Jiang's father look a lot older in an instant. He looked very tired. Let's not talk about filial piety first. Having a son with such a bad temper, he was also very frustrated. It wasn't easy to raise him up, but the child always felt that his parents owed him a lot. Luo Jiang's father left the ward and sat on the chair at the door. Luo Jiang looked at the beautiful doctor. "Thank you for speaking up for me. My father's temper is like that. Don't mind him." Luo Jiang felt that his father was very embarrassed in front of a beautiful woman. He would shout and shout at the slightest thing. The beautiful nurse took Luo Jiang's temperature and said, "What are you thanking me for? You are my patient. I should be responsible for you. You want to be responsible for me? I agree. 100 times agree." The beautiful doctor glanced at Luo Jiang reproachfully. Luo Jiang asked the beautiful doctor again. "Is my little brother really okay?" "It's okay. Even if something happened, medical treatment is so advanced now. You can install an erection device. It will have the same effect." "Luo Jiang, don't." After the beautiful nurse left, Luo Jiang anxiously asked the system for help. "Hey, will my little brother be okay? How can he be okay when he is so bad? Can't you be a bit more careful? Where did you get hurt? If you can't stand firm, how can you conquer a beauty? Why are you so stupid?" The push-down system was very annoyed, and said with resentment. He ran to play with the dog and got hurt by the dog. Moreover, he got hurt somewhere. To be more precise, he was angry in his heart. He vented it on the dog, but he got bitten by the dog instead. This host was really stupid. Luo Jiang was even more speechless. How could he have thought that this dog would be so cruel? Luo Jiang didn't care about the system calling him stupid. He quickly asked, "Can you restore my little brother to its original state? Otherwise, I won't be able to be in harmony with the beauty." Everything was for this last step. The beauty was already lying on the bed, but he couldn't do anything. Luo Jiang felt that he would go crazy. The system was silent for a long time. The longer the system was silent, the more anxious Luo Zhang's heart became. Can you do it or not? Say something. Luo Zhang said, trembling with fear. It is not impossible to restore it. The system said coldly. Luo Zhang let out a long sigh of relief. Only then did his heart fall back into his chest. This system finally had some use. Okay, then you help me restore it. Only after it is restored can I go conquer mountains of beauties. Luo Zhang said. Restoring a lot of energy. To restore an object to its original state, do you know how much energy is needed? The system's voice was incomparably cold. Luo Zhang was immediately stunned. He said with some disbelief, don't tell me you don't want to restore it for me. If I restore it for you, I will spend so much energy. What benefits will I get? Benefits, benefits. Luo Zhang scratched his head. He really couldn't give the system any benefits. Chapter 1247. Luo Zhang thought about it, but he couldn't think of any benefits he could give to the system. The system asked him to do missions, and once the missions were completed, there would be rewards. It was as if the system had always been giving to him, and he didn't need to repay the system. If you don't fix it for me, I won't do the mission. Luo Zhang could only use this to threaten the system, to make him continuously flirt with girls, and sleep with girls. This would definitely be beneficial to the system. The system's heart was unmoved by Luo Zhang's threat. You don't want to do the mission, but there are many people who want to do it. There were many people who wanted to reap without sowing, and there were many people who stretched their necks and hoped for a pie to fall from the sky. The system coldly and arrogantly looked at the bluffing Luo Zhang, weighing whether or not it should leave this person. It had been almost 2 months, and this man hadn't slept with a single girl. Find a host with good conditions. They didn't care about money, and only find this kind of person who had no money and no power, safe and obedient. The system was silent, making Luo Zhang's heart very frightened. Could it be that the system abandoned him and ran away? System, as long as you help me fix it, I will listen to you in the future. I will definitely listen to you. In the end, Luo Zhang was bitterly begging. The system was still weighing the pros and cons, when Luo Zhang said, when it's fixed, I will definitely sleep with a doctor or nurse, I swear. Okay, only this time, there will definitely be no next time. The system said. Luo Zhang was ecstatic. Okay, you can rest assured, next time I will be bitten by a dog, I will be a pig. The system began to repair Luo Zhang's wound. Luo Zhang felt that there was a numb and itchy feeling, as if electricity had passed through him. Can you make me a bit bigger? Since I have to fix it, I might as well make it a bit bigger. Luo Zhang said to the system. Maybe his length could catch up with Britain and America. The system coldly said, don't bargain, this time I will only fix it for you, not for a second growth. When you complete the mission, there will naturally be such a reward. Luo Zhang muttered in his heart, really stingy. Luo Zhang endured the numb and itchy feeling, his hand under his arm. This hospitalization was an opportunity. Maybe he could have a qualitative breakthrough with the beautiful doctor. During this period of hospitalization, he must get the beautiful doctor. Without any worries, and with his little brother dead, Luo Zhang's mood immediately became very good. He felt that the future was bright, and he was full of enthusiasm. As a neighbor, Ning Shu had to pretend to go and take a look. Ning Shu bought some fruits and arrived at the hospital. When he opened the door, he saw Luo Zhang talking to a beautiful doctor wearing a white coat. It was unknown what interesting things they had said, but both of them had smiles on their faces. Ning Shu looked at Luo Zhang, whose eyebrows and eyes were filled with provocation. How could he still flirt with girls with such a smile even though he had suffered an indescribable injury? Shouldn't he be mourning the loss of his masculinity? Could it be that the system had fixed it? They were really willing to spend money. Ning Shu stood at the door of the ward and coughed. When Luo Zhang saw Ning Shu, he was stunned. Hu Duo, why are you here? I heard that you were bitten by a dog, so I came to see you. Ning Shu put the fruits on the bed, his eyes sweeping over Luo Zhang's face. Although Luo Zhang's face was pale, his spirit seemed to be good. His little brother was already like that, any man would not be so relaxed. Although it was a lump of meat, it represented a man's masculinity and confidence. Ning Shu asked, "How are you?" "I'm fine, I can be discharged soon." Luo Zhang said, but he was very proud in his heart. This damn girl usually looked at him with disdain, but when she saw that he was injured, she still anxiously ran over to see him. She was a damned tsundere, and her body was upright. "Are you really okay?" Ning Shu asked in surprise. "Was the blood from tomato juice?" Father who said that he was seriously injured, how could he be okay? Luo Zhang nodded. Dr. Wu's medical skills are brilliant, so I can keep my happy life. Facing Luo Zhang, the beautiful doctor blushed. Ning Shu was expressionless. He had not even removed the gauze, and he already knew that he was okay. "It's good that you're okay, then I'm leaving." Ning Shu turned around and left the ward. Luo Zhang shook his head at the beautiful doctor. "This is my childhood sweetheart, her temper is very bad, don't bother with that little girl." The beautiful doctor lightly said, "Why would I bother with her, not to mention your childhood sweetheart is quite cute." "Dr. Wu, are you jealous?" Luo Zhang teased. After staying in the hospital for about a week, Luo Zhang's father wanted to discharge him. Luo Zhang was suddenly unhappy. He was now spending time with the beautiful doctor, and their relationship had already warmed up. How could he be discharged now? Luo Zhang's father helplessly said, "Our family has no money, last time you took a lot of money from our family, plus your surgery fees and hospitalization fees, our family can't afford it." Luo Zhang was somewhat angry that his father said that he stole money from his family in public. "Can you not always talk about this matter? My injury is not an ordinary cold. Dad, don't tell me you don't care about your son's future happiness. You can come for a checkup every week, our family really has no money." Luo Zhang sighed. Money, 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 it was all money. If he had money, he could do whatever he wanted, and he wouldn't have to be so bitter. Therefore, he must succeed. The beautiful doctor did not approve of Luo Zhang's discharge, because if he went home to recuperate, his wound might get infected, and at that time, it would cause even more serious consequences. The beautiful doctor explained the importance of this matter to Luo Zhang's father. After returning home, if there was a problem and he couldn't get timely treatment, he would really become a cripple. Luo Zhang's father helplessly said, "Our family has no money." Luo Zhang's father was also under a lot of psychological pressure, and the key point was that his son was not easy to worry about. Luo Zhang felt very embarrassed. His father said that he had no money in front of the beautiful woman, and that he was poor and had no ambition. The beautiful doctor's head became hot, and she said, "I'll pay for the hospitalization fees." Luo family's father and son both stared at the beautiful doctor in surprise. "You don't need to pay for it." Luo Zhang shook his head and said. Using a woman's money made Luo Zhang feel very embarrassed, especially when he was still pursuing the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor also didn't know why she said such words, but when she heard that Luo Zhang was going to be discharged, her heart became anxious, and she said such words. She had some faint regret in her heart, but she quickly threw this slight regret to the back of her head, and said to Luo Zhang, "It's okay, you should properly recuperate." Luo Zhang couldn't help but hold the beautiful doctor's hand, and with a touched face, he said, "Thank you, I will return the money to you in the future. I think you have a lot of potential, you will succeed." The beautiful doctor said. As for why she felt that this man had potential, to be honest, the beautiful doctor didn't know. It was probably her sixth sense. Chapter 1248. The beautiful doctor's trust and expectation filled Luo Zhang's heart with gratitude and motivation. There was such a person who wholeheartedly believed in him, and even helped him pay for the medical expenses. Although his injuries were almost healed, in order to have more opportunities to interact with the beautiful doctor, Luo Jiang decided to hide this matter. Besides, his lower body suddenly healed so quickly, it would definitely arouse suspicion, and he didn't want to be dissected by others. Luo Jiang said to his father, "Now that someone is helping to pay for the medical expenses, I don't need to leave the hospital." Sometimes, his own parents were not even as good as an outsider. The beautiful doctor was really beautiful and kind. This. Luo Jiang's father hesitated, "Don't trouble the doctor, it's not good to trouble others." "It's okay, when Luo Jiang has money, you can return it to me," the beautiful doctor said. Luo Jiang's father was still hesitant. He wanted to say, "Why is she willing to help you?" But thinking of his son's temperament, Luo Jiang's father closed his mouth. Luo Jiang's father turned around and left. He still had to go to work. Luo Jiang grabbed the beautiful doctor's smooth hand. His eyes were full of tenderness as he looked at the beautiful doctor. "Dr. Wu, in the future, I will return you 1 yuan every day, I can see you every day." The beautiful doctor withdrew her hand and walked to the door of the ward. She turned around and smiled sweetly. "If you really dare to return me 1 yuan every day, I plan to break your leg, your third leg." Luo Jiang clutched his chest. He heard the system prompt that the beautiful doctor's favorable impression of him had greatly increased. It seemed that the time to push her down was not far. Soon, he would have money, and his masculinity would greatly increase. Compared to Luo Jiang's smooth sailing, Ning Shu's heart was not too happy. The pushing down the beauty system actually helped to heal Luo Jiang's injuries. This system really made Ning Shu want to kneel down. It seemed that Luo Jiang's body still had luck, otherwise, the system would not be reluctant to leave. Ning Shu hammered his chest, feeling somewhat stifled. Luo Jiang's things were still intact, which meant that he could still push down beauties. He could still walk to the peak of life. There were so many beauties in the world waiting for Luo Jiang to conquer, he couldn't kill all of them, right? If Luo Jiang's indescribable place was injured again, Luo Jiang himself would probably feel that someone had a deep hatred for his little brother. What should he do then? Fortunately, Luo Jiang was wearing jeans at that time. If it was a loose pair of pants, perhaps his little brother would have been bitten off. It was really good to have a system. It could even help repair the damage done to his body. From a certain point of view, Luo Jiang could be considered as an unkillable cockroach. Whenever he received a fatal injury, the system would help to repair it. Damn it! Ning Shu took out the silver needles from the drawer. However, the silver needles still felt something when they were inserted into the body. Moreover, Ning Shu did not know if the system would notice. If the system told Luo Jiang that someone was doing something bad to him, with Luo Jiang's vengeful nature and the fact that the two families were facing each other, the Hu family would not be able to live peacefully. If he wanted to harm someone, he had to do it in secret so that the other party wouldn't be able to find a target for revenge. The little white rabbit was white and white. Moreover, the original owner was a university student and had a beautiful life ahead of her. Being entangled with this kind of scum was simply disgusting. What a dilemma. He wanted to do it himself, but he was afraid that the other party's system would detect it. He hated this kind of system cheat the most. Especially since her system was so useless, it was even more annoying. Ning Shu let out a long breath and put the silver needles into the drawer. Then he could only use poison. Ning Shu felt that he had to bring out all of his skills. If poison didn't work, then he would use curses. He just didn't know if this world would succeed. Modern society was in an age of decline. There was little spiritual energy, and many methods might not succeed. Moreover, there was the suppression of the plane. Ning Shu went to buy a large chicken to stew soup. He took out the medicinal ingredients that he had bought along with the silver needles from the room. He cut the astragalus into slices and boiled them in the pot. As for the other medicinal ingredients, Ning Shu began to make medicine according to a certain ratio. He had to make sure that no one would be able to find out that there was medicine in it. Ning Shu really brought out all of his martial arts. This time, it was mainly a test to see if the system would find out that there was a problem with the chicken soup. Ning Shu sprinkled the medicinal ingredients into the pot and waited for the chicken soup to taste. However, the chicken that was fed with large amounts of feed couldn't make a rich chicken soup at all. Ning Shu sprinkled a lot of chicken essence and MSG into the pot to make it taste better. Ning Shu smelled it. The rich and fresh smell was mixed with the smell of medicinal ingredients. It smelled quite good. Ning Shu put the chicken soup in a thermos, then washed the pot clean. He carried the thermos to the hospital. When he saw Luo Jiang again, Luo Jiang's face was in high spirits. It was impossible to tell that he was sick or injured. His face was flushed with success. He was probably living a happy life with the beautiful doctors and nurses. Ning Shu carried the thermos and walked into the ward. "Here, this is the chicken soup that your mother made for you. Your mother's health isn't good, so she asked me to bring it over," Ning Shu said as he opened the thermos. Luo Jiang stared at Ning Shu. "If you care about me, just care about me. Why do you have to put on such a look? You're too arrogant." Ning Shu was speechless. "Little Duo, you actually like me in your heart, right?" Luo Jiang tilted his body and raised his eyebrows as he looked at Ning Shu. His eyebrows trembled. Ning Shu took a spoon and directly stuffed the thermos into Luo Jiang's hands. "Eat." Luo Jiang smiled proudly. He picked up the spoon and scooped up a piece of chicken. When he put it into his mouth, his expression froze. Luo Jiang turned his head and looked at Ning Shu. He stared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's heart jumped. Could it be that he found out? Ning Shu calmly asked, "What's wrong?" "It's too delicious," Luo Jiang said excitedly. "I eat hospital food every day, so my mouth is very bland. This chicken soup tastes really good. Little Duo, I know you like me. You're so considerate of me." Luo Jiang ate the chicken and drank the chicken soup. He ate and drank as if he had been hungry for a long time. Ning Shu said, "If you like it, then eat some." It seemed that the system on Luo Jiang's body would not remind him. This was because there were some medicinal herbs that were beneficial to the body in the chicken soup. These medicinal herbs also covered some of the medicine's taste. Luo Jiang definitely would not be able to taste it. Ning Shu was worried about the system. However, the system did not remind Luo Jiang. Otherwise, Luo Jiang would not eat it. Luo Jiang finished the thermos of chicken soup and the chicken. Luo Jiang's face was full of satisfaction. He burped. "I ate so well." Ning Shu closed the thermos and was about to leave. A beautiful doctor wearing a white coat came in. When she saw Ning Shu smiled. "You're here to see him." Ning Shu saw the beautiful doctor smiling gently. There was an indescribable sadness in his heart. Such a good woman was ruined by Luo Jiang. She was still so kind when facing someone who might be her love rival. Anyway, the harem of a stallion man was very harmonious. There was never any jealousy. They were like sisters. Chapter 1249. Knowing that Luo Jiang's system wouldn't remind him, Ning Shu sent Luo Jiang a thermos of chicken soup every 2 days. Of course, it was chicken soup with added ingredients. Although he didn't know why the system didn't remind Luo Jiang, maybe it was afraid of wasting energy, or maybe the system didn't value Luo Jiang. No matter what the reason was, it gave Ning Shu an opportunity. Luo Jiang ate large amounts of food to accelerate the ripening of his muscles every day, plus he drank chicken soup sprinkled with MSG. His days were very carefree. Every day he flirted with beautiful doctors and nurses, and now there was also Ning Shu. Damn shameless. Obviously he was fine, but he still stayed in the hospital. Did he not need money to stay in the hospital? Damn shameless. Obviously he was injured, but during his days in the hospital, Luo Jiang actually became fat. This kind of man really made Ning Shu speechless. Especially when he saw a beautiful woman being ruined by such a man, Ning Shu's heart ached. He didn't take responsibility even after pulling up his pants. It was fine if he didn't get married, but after a while, he would have to find a new beauty. The more beautiful the woman, the better the family background, and the more rewards. He even flirted with foreign empresses and princesses. Damn shameless. After Ning Shu heard that it was the beautiful doctor who paid for the hospitalization fees, his heart ached even more. Swindling moneying women, and still staying in the hospital with a clear conscience. Spending the beautiful woman's money, what a damn shameless man. Ning Shu occasionally talked with the beautiful doctor, and told her about Luo Jiang's basic situation. He had no job, no savings, the house was his parents', and his temper was very left. He tactfully told the beautiful doctor that it was better not to associate with this kind of person. He didn't even have savings, be careful that you can't even pay for the medical fees. Ning Shu was earnestly advising. In fact, seeing such a beautiful woman, she should be well taken care of. How could she be ruined by Luo Jiang, that little bastard? The beautiful doctor looked at Ning Shu with a smile and said, "Are you jealous? You don't want me to get close to your childhood friend, so you are telling me this?" Ning Shu, beautiful woman, what I said is true, believe me. I'm telling the truth, really. Luo Jiang's situation is exactly what I'm talking about. The beautiful doctor gently said, everyone has their lowest moments. Luo Jiang is like this now, but it doesn't mean that he will be like this in the future. I believe in his potential. Ning Shu didn't feel too good. What potential? Intelligence determines height, character determines fate. With Luo Jiang's Chinibu attitude, where everything is wrong with the world, this kind of thinking would not have any potential. A leopard can't change its spots. If it wasn't for the push-down system, Luo Jiang would have been like this for the rest of his life. What kind of potential can he have? He doesn't do anything seriously, and he doesn't have a goal to fight for. He's almost 30 years old, but he doesn't have a plan for his life. How can he succeed like this? Even if he has potential, he doesn't have enough motivation to carry it out. Ning Shu sat opposite the beautiful doctor. So, let him leave the hospital as soon as possible, lest you waste your time. Hey, damn girl, you're saying bad things about me behind my back. Do you want to monopolize me? That's why you're ruining my reputation in front of Dr. Wu. Luo Jiang walked into the office with his crutch. Ning Shu tilted his head and smiled, you look a lot better now. Don't you feel embarrassed using Dr. Wu's money? You're jealous that Dr. Wu treats me well. You're afraid that I'll be snatched away by Dr. Wu, right? Ning Shu said, as long as you're happy. Damn girl, you're so arrogant. Luo Jiang pointed at Ning Shu's back, this girl's temper is all because Uncle Hu and the others spoiled her. She's the only girl in the family, so they spoiled her to the heavens. The beautiful doctor's expression was gentle, what about you? Do you have a brother in the family? Luo Jiang quickly sat down, I'm also the only son in the family. As long as you marry into my family, my parents will definitely treat you like their own daughter. No, they will treat you like their own daughter. Dr. Wu, I want to be discharged from the hospital. I feel very embarrassed spending your money while staying in the hospital. Wait until I go out to work, then I'll return the money to you. The beautiful doctor breathed a sigh of relief in her heart and said, it's okay. We'll talk about it again when your body gets better. The hospitalization fee was a bit high. Even the beautiful doctor couldn't afford it. Besides, as a girl, she needed to buy clothes, shoes, and cosmetics. These all cost money. The next day, Luo Jiang was discharged from the hospital. Before leaving the hospital, he removed the gauze. The beautiful doctor was the one who removed the gauze. After removing all the gauze, the beautiful doctor's expression was shocked. Except for some tiny stitches, Luo Jiang's indescribable place had recovered very well. Moreover, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see the stitches. How long had it been, yet he was able to recover so well? Being stared at by the beautiful doctor's sensitive place, especially the shocked expression on the beautiful doctor's face, made Luo Jiang's heart burst with an indescribable pride and excitement. He actually had the tendency to raise his head. Luo Jiang's younger brother slowly raised his head under the gaze of the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor glared at him and pulled the quilt over his body. "It's okay. You can leave the hospital now." Luo Jiang chuckled, causing the beautiful doctor's face to turn red. Luo Jiang laughed even more wretchedly. Luo Jiang took an inch and wanted a mile. He asked the beautiful doctor, "When are you free? I'll treat you to a meal and take you to play." "What nonsense are you talking about?" When the beautiful doctor heard the word play, she was immediately displeased. Luo Jiang had an innocent face. "What nonsense am I talking about? I'm saying that after the meal, I'll take you to the amusement park and ride the Ferris wheel." Wasn't there a saying that if she was inexperienced, he would take her to see the prosperity of the world? If she had experienced the vicissitudes of life, he would take her to ride the merry-go-round? Looking at the beautiful doctor's age, with this kind of temperament, riding the merry-go-round couldn't be better. "Tell me, are you thinking the wrong way? What are you thinking about?" The beautiful doctor was somewhat embarrassed, but she couldn't resist Luo Jiang's pleading. She agreed, "I'll go with you on the weekend. I'll switch shifts with my colleagues." The beautiful doctor thought for a moment, "You can also call your childhood sweetheart." She always felt that the progress with Luo Jiang was too fast. It was safer for the three of them to be together. Compared to Luo Jiang, the beautiful doctor trusted Luo Jiang's childhood sweetheart more. After all, childhood sweetheart wouldn't do anything to her. Luo Jiang didn't even think about it and agreed. Who would have this kind of luck to take two girls on a date? Luo Jiang happily left the hospital. The first thing he did after leaving the hospital was to knock on the door of Ning Shu's house. Ning Shu looked at Luo Jiang's peach blossom face and asked, "What are you doing?" Luo Jiang held the door with his hand. His action was incomparably cool. Ning Shu said, "Little girl, do you want to go to the amusement park?" "Go to the amusement park?" Ning Shu asked back, "Do you want to go to the haunted house?" Luo Jiang, damn, this girl's taste is really heavy. Chapter 1250. Ning Shu said, "If you want to go to the haunted house, I will consider going." Ning Shu said with a smile, "I like haunted houses." Luo Jiang could not help but shake his head. His temper was bad, and the things he liked were so strange. Shouldn't he go to the merry-go-round or Ferris wheel? Luo Jiang nodded, "We can go to the haunted house." "Just the two of us?" Ning Shu asked. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Luo Jiang hesitated and said, "There is also Dr. Wu. There was also the beautiful doctor, she must go." If she did not go, Luo Jiang might do something to the beautiful doctor. Not to mention what Luo Jiang would get, Ning Shu did not want the beautiful doctor to be deceived by Luo Jiang. "Then I'm going." After Ning Shu finished speaking, she slammed the door shut. Luo Jiang touched his nose, damn arrogant. When it was the weekend, Ning Shu wore jeans and a t-shirt, took out the silver needles from the drawer and put them in his bag. Then he went out, and when he opened the door, he ran into Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang was dressed very casually, but the material of his clothes was not bad, the workmanship was very good, it was not cheap at all. "Ning Shu, where did this guy get the money?" Luo Jiang looked at Ning Shu from head to toe, and said with some disdain, "You are wearing this? Is there something wrong?" Ning Shu tilted his head and asked. Luo Jiang curled his lips, "You should wear a dress for a date, dress up, you are too casual." Ning Shu said with a smile, "We still want to go to the haunted house, I am afraid someone will lift my dress. The haunted house is so dark, even if they lift your dress, they won't be able to see it." Luo Jiang said grumpily. "Then I still want to ride the pirate ship, I also want to ride the roller coaster, the wind is strong, it will lift my dress." Luo Jiang, this temperament, his childhood sweetheart in the past, was not so troublesome. The two of them went downstairs. Luo Jiang went straight to a car, took out the car key, unlocked it, and then sat in the car. Ning Shu looked at the car in surprise. Where did Luo Jiang get a car from? Luo Jiang looked at Ning Shu's dumbfounded expression and said proudly, "What are you still standing there for? Come on up." Ning Shu sat in the car and asked, "Where did you get the car?" "I'm not telling you." Luo Jiang turned the steering wheel. He was wearing good clothes and driving a small car. He had the air of a successful person. However, Ning Shu heard from mother who that after Luo Jiang was bitten by a dog, he had to pay for the surgery, hospitalization, and some money that Luo Jiang had taken away. Now, the Luo family had been emptied. And Luo Jiang actually had the money to drive. The car was probably either borrowed or rented. Luo Jiang didn't have any friends who would lend him a car, so this car was most likely rented by a car rental company. Would he die if he didn't act cool? Ning Shu looked out of the window. The car drove for a while and stopped. The beautiful doctor stood on the side of the road. It was a beautiful scenery. She was wearing a knee-length white dress, revealing her well-proportioned and good-looking calves. Her ankles were slender, and she was wearing a hat. The beautiful doctor's well-proportioned body attracted the attention of passers-by. Ning Shu saw Luo Jiang's eyes instantly turn green. "Look, this is a woman. Learn from Dr. Wu, learn from Sister Doctor, little girl." Luo Jiang touched his lips and looked at the beautiful doctor. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu didn't say anything and just stared at the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor got in the car. Ning Shu smelled the elegant fragrance on her body. Luo Jiang sniffed and praised the beautiful doctor, "You are very beautiful today." Ning Shu also praised, "You are indeed very beautiful." "Thank you." The beautiful doctor pushed her hair behind her ear. Ning Shu praised in his heart. She was really a beautiful woman. She had a good temperament and a good image. This kind of woman should meet someone who cherishes her, loves her, appreciates her and protects her beauty. She should fertilize and water her, not be like Luo Jiang who rudely plucks her beauty and then throws it away like dirt. A woman's happiness depended on the people she met, because the people around her would destroy a woman's appearance and temperament. "By the way, I have a gift for you." The beautiful doctor took out a hair clip from her bag. It was crystal and very shiny. It looked expensive. Ning Shu was a little surprised. Why did the beautiful doctor give him a gift? "The color of this hair clip is not suitable for me. It is suitable for your age," the beautiful doctor said. Ning Shu readily accepted it and took out a bottle of pepper spray. "This is for you. This world is very dangerous, especially some men with bad intentions. If you meet a man who harasses you, directly spray him. Don't be merciful." Ning Shu revealed his white shining teeth and smiled sinisterly. Dr. Wu accepted it, "Thank you." Luo Jiang, damn girl. He had never seen such a speechless girl. Soon the car arrived at the amusement park. The amusement park was very lively during the weekend. There were parents, children, and some couples. Luo Jiang asked the two girls for their opinion, "Which game should we play first?" Ning Shu immediately said, "Let's play the haunted house first. It will be the fastest way to get into the mood." Luo Jiang directly ignored Ning Shu and asked the beautiful doctor, "What do you want to play? How about the merry-go-round?" The beautiful doctor said. Luo Jiang immediately agreed. The three of them sat on the merry-go-round and slowly swayed. Ning Shu stared at Luo Jiang and the beautiful doctor in front of her. She must protect the beautiful doctor's body and not let Luo Jiang take advantage of her. Even if it was for the crystal hair clip that the beautiful doctor gave her. The more important thing was to deprive Luo Jiang of his luck and make the system abandon Luo Jiang. Without the system, Luo Jiang's true colors would be revealed. When the merry-go-round finally finished, Ning Shu immediately said, "Let's go to the haunted house." Luo Jiang still ignored Ning Shu and asked the beautiful doctor, "What are we going to play?" The beautiful doctor glanced at Ning Shu and said, "Then let's go to the haunted house." Luo Jiang glared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu curled her lips and said, "Don't tell me you're scared. Don't tell me you're scared of the haunted house. Can you be scared in front of a beautiful woman?" Under Ning Shu's sarcasm, Luo Jiang righteously walked into the haunted house. Ning Shu curled her lips and reached into her bag and took out a silver needle. The light in the haunted house was dim. As soon as they walked in, there was a bit of a gloomy feeling. It made people feel a bit scared. The beautiful doctor couldn't help but hug Luo Jiang's arm. Smelling the elegant fragrance and the softness that was leaning on his arm, Luo Jiang was deeply moved. Although the haunted house was a bit scary, but this was the fastest way to increase feelings. Ning Shu followed behind Luo Jiang, imitating his every step. The three of them carefully walked through the haunted house. Occasionally a scary thing would pop out, scaring the beautiful doctor into Luo Jiang's arms. Feeling the beautiful woman's smooth body, Luo Jiang purposely walked very slowly and even spun around. Ning Shu also occasionally called out, matching the situation. She was always looking for an opportunity to strike. Especially since it was so dark inside, stabbing people was a bit difficult. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.